Live from Chatterbox Sports Studios, it's Off the Bench with Tom Brenneman.
All right, we're back in here once again. This is Trace Fowler, not Tom Brenneman as usual, and this is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. The Reds did not play yesterday. They got rained out. Rained out's probably a term that's it's a little vague in the scenario that they are in. There was obviously the hurricane situation going on in Los Angeles, which pushed the games back. The Reds now will play on Thursday, 2 games instead of the 3 game set with the Angels. And the Bengals have some news. They're in the news. Joe Mixon obviously coming out with some public statements on not only some media reporters, but then also the news in the NFL that is Jonathan Taylor seems to be available. As always, around the office, many times people want to make jokes about these running backs. We'll probably get into it today. I guess many people are thinking Jonathan Taylor's worthless. He can't help the Bengals. I digress. I do think that could be the case. We'll get into that just a little bit. People think I'm trolling when I say that, and I really don't think that I am. Now, again, I understand why you might believe that running backs aren't that big of a deal, but I also think the windows of opportunity to win a Super Bowl don't come around all that often. Just ask almost every other team in the league outside the Patriots and the Chiefs in recent years. In other news, I had to stay up late last night. So I am not very rested like I was the other day, and I do want to get out in front of something after I make this statement. I did edit most of the featured film that is me and Elliot playing golf. I believe that will come out tomorrow for those that are waiting for that. I do think that it's going to be funny, if nothing else. We'll see if it's entertaining enough for you to watch it all the way through. But it was what it was. The next match has been set for Monday. And if you're asking why Monday instead of Thursday, you just take a look at the weather. And it's about 150 degrees on Thursday. And we decided that that's not a good idea to go out and play golf. Fellas is in the room. I'm going to need their help today because when the Reds don't play and the Bengals don't play and FC Cincinnati doesn't play and the Cyclones don't play, it's tough to do a show. It's tough to do a show. Am I missing anybody? Did I miss anyone in that bunch? I think I did.
Let's play a game. You want to play a game real quick?
Let's play a game.
It's called Let's Name an FC Cincinnati Player.
Acosta.
Go ahead, name one.
Acosta.
Full name, please.
Ooh, I got two. I got two FCC players.
It starts with an
L.
L.
And it's not Lionel. Is it Lionel?
No, it's not Lionel.
Of course,
There
that's
is a
messy.
soccer player with that name.
I went for it, okay? I'm sorry.
Luciano.
Oh, yeah,
Acosta.
that was it. Right off the top of my head. I can't believe I forgot.
So I know him.
All due respect, of course.
I know him, and I know one other, and it's the Lakota West grad, Nick Hagland.
Yes, I
too.
should. Dang, I knew that.
And I know Mitch says no, too.
Brandon Vasquez.
Well, we all got one except for Tracy got half of one.
Miazga.
All right, I want to get out in front of something.
Oh,
Okay?
gosh.
I do. All right, I got up this morning, started getting dressed, was making my way into the office. I put on this shirt, all right? And I'm not defending Reed. I'm not trying to to say that Reed doesn't do these things on purpose. But I got to be honest, I almost took the shirt off and decided I was going to wear a new shirt, largely because this is a large. Okay, I don't know what world we've lived in, but I don't know. But like this thing barely makes it to my waist. The arms, basically, if you look at these things, I'm not even strong. You can see my farmer stand. Shout out farmers. We need them.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, it's like basically a tank top, and it's a large. It says large on the back of this. This is not a large, okay? I don't know at what point in the apparel company history decided, you know what, let's start doing some things differently. Let's make this a little bit smaller, maybe a little bit tighter. I don't work out, like I said before. Maybe you heard this, maybe you haven't. When I used to work out in college, because they legitimately forced me to go do these things, I used to joke with my coach and said the Yankees don't scout at Gold's Gym. Now, the only thing about that is that that's probably why I wasn't a great baseball player, because I just wasn't strong enough to compete at the highest level. So that's that. I'm not downplaying what I don't want anyone coming after me in my DM saying, working out is important. I know that. I'm just trying to make fun of the fact that there are people that take that probably a little too serious. Anyways, Reed, I tell you what, even better. You know, I don't know if you can do this or not, Casey, on the fly. What? My favorite thing about Reed Mouse is this. Reed does come into the office every once in a while. And as many of you people that say, fire Reed, fire Reed. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Reed's a great employee. I say that because I have to say that before I get on him a little bit. If you zoom in on Reed's shirt,
it's wrinkly.
I want to know where the hell he pulled this thing out at. Did this thing even was it ever washed?
It was washed.
What exactly was it? Like, look at that thing. Zoom in on that. Don't pull it down. No, let it go. Good. Let it go. What is that, Reed?
Listen.
How do you wear that in public and think that's good?
I don't have an answer. I try to get by on my boyish good looks, and hopefully people don't stare at the shirts too much. But as we've come across on this show, what I wear is very apparent because it's talked about every single day. So I guess I got to put a little more guidance into what I wear. You know what?
He's wearing pants.
I am wearing pants.
That's the first time he's worn pants since I've started working here.
Well, yeah, you started working in the summer. That's typically not the season you wear pants. The thing is my wife, the best thing about getting married is sometimes she puts out an outfit for me like I'm 5 years old. And that's honestly, my favorite part about getting married is when she puts out an outfit like I'm 5 years old. She didn't do that today because I picked this out myself. Did not get the iron. I don't iron my clothes, as you can tell. And I'm probably not going to in the future. So if the wrinkles bother you guys, they don't bother me. I'm the one wearing it. So it shouldn't bother you guys.
I don't think that's how it works. You see, that's not how it works. Have you ever showed up at a big business meeting and just rolled in there with a T-shirt and a tank on and been like, hey, man, I know you guys are uncomfortable, but I'm real comfortable. I know that you're wearing that, but I'm wearing this, and that's your problem, not mine. It probably turns around at some point to be your problem, just to be a little bit fair to what you just tried to argue.
Well, for what it's worth, is I am so handsome, I'm so good looking that sometimes I gotta wear bad clothes just to even it out for the rest of you guys, make it even for everyone.
Right.
I gotta handicap myself.
I gotta be honest. Everyone in the office is gonna get something really fun, probably for a Christmas bonus or something along those lines. And you know what? Reed Mouse is gonna end up getting like some kind of steam machine. That's where it's gonna end up for Reed. It's like, oh, Elliot, here you go. You got a new car. Casey, you got you're going on a cruise, a 10-day cruise around the world. Here you go, Reed. You get a steam wand.
Hey, I'll take it. I'm not picky, so if you want to give me a steam wand, sure. Everyone else can have something great. I'll live with my steam wand, and then maybe you guys will have a better work experience now that my shirt is ironed. I'm sorry I detract from your work day.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'm not a good dresser either, so I can't really comment on this. I come in here with like a hoodie or whatever I throw on top. So I'm not gonna make fun of Reed for that. I am very happy he's wearing pants. I'm very happy. Nobody is more happy about this than I. He has never worn pants one time. Well, this is the very first.
Our best dress, Paul, he's no longer here.
Well, Paul quit on his family.
He always came in with a polo, nice watch, belt, nice pants, shorts.
Yeah, well, he was halfway out the door. So
yeah, the only professional one I've almost here.
Big League Paul. R.I.P.
What's he going to get for a Christmas bonus?
It's hard to get a Christmas bonus when you're not here, isn't it?
Well, you get a championship ring if you play a game.
Time out. Kirby put in the chat, he's like, make Reed iron live on air. Wouldn't that be a hilarious bit if we just start off the show like, hey, welcome to Off the Bench, and I'm just sitting over here on an iron?
Well, unfortunately, the way that shirt is looking, it's going to take you all show to do it. I mean, that is one of those ones where you're going to have to actually spray it down, get it wet before you even start on that thing. There's no chance you can get the wrinkles out of that without any kind of moisture. It is that bad. I'm not trying to spend all show talking about Reed's shirt and my shirt, but the truth is this. When I seen his shirt this morning, I thought to myself, how do you get it that wrinkled? I don't even know how that's even feasibly possible. The only chance you have is to throw it into a pile of clothes, let it sit there for about 2.5 weeks, pull it back out, and then throw it back in there for one more week, and then pull it back out. And I think that's what the final result is. But that's not why you tune into the show, is to listen to how Reed Mouse wears wrinkled shirts. There are some things that I do want to discuss today. There are some funny little tidbits. When nobody plays baseball and or football games in the city, we are going to do some funny things, all right? What we find funny. If you don't find them funny, we're sorry. Our humor doesn't align with yours, and that stinks for you. Here's the deal. I didn't do the opening of this show. I do want to remind you that this is a show that starts every single day of the week besides Saturdays and Sundays. Most people call that Monday through Friday from 10 to 12
P.
Good job, guys. Very nice. Good work. And as always, this is Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers, and you could watch this show. And by watch, I mean listen. It's a bit. Keep up. On podcast form. And by podcast form, you know what I mean. By this point, it's literally every single podcast in the world. I do give Tom credit, though. He has this very standard way of doing things, and he tells you every single time that you can watch this on Apple Podcast and Google Podcast and all of the major podcast platforms. That sounds much better than what I do, but I want to leave that bit for Tom. That way, I can't become too polished up here, because if I do, then I think it detracts from Tom. That's the excuse that I'm going to continue to make. Tom, I think, will be back at some point. I'm not suggesting that it's soon, but I am suggesting that he is he's in good spirits, and I think, again, hopefully speaking for us, and especially for my work life, that he's back as soon as possible. All right, Parker Blake. You might not know who Parker Blake is. Parker Blake is a guy that is newly a part of the Chatterbox team. He's going to cover Chatterbox Bengals. He's going to be on Chatterbox Bengals, I should say, and cover the Bengals in general for us here at Chatterbox. And I'm excited to have him on. I believe he's coming on at 10:30. Is that correct?
10:30.
Yes.
Yep.
10:30. And then Tracy Jones. I'm sure he's going to be all over me. I am waiting for it. At 11:30, Tracy Jones will probably come in here, and he will probably have a good amount of things to say to me that aren't all that nice, because I got to be honest, it finally took me today to realize that I did not text Tracy back. I texted him back this morning. To be fair to him, he did text me back, said he'll be on the show. We'll see where that goes. Who knows? With Tracy Jones, you just never know. All right. I say before we get into serious topics, and by serious topics, I mean why the Cincinnati Bengals should at least consider getting Jonathan Taylor. We have some funnies. And the funnies are this. There's a guy named Chiefaholic. If you don't know who Chiefaholic is, he is a guy that is a crazy man for the Kansas City Chiefs football team. He traveled the country following their games, basically wore like a Wolf's type outfit. I don't know what is that the correct term, fellas? I don't want to misspeak here,
yes.
But he wore basically a full wolf garb, right? So very much a personality of a super fan, right? Well, it turns out this guy's been robbing banks. At least so says the law, the authority, that is. His lawyer, on the other hand, I don't know if he decided that he was going to come out full force right off the get-go and try to make this full thing a hilarious bit, and just said, you know what, I'm going to go down in internet history as being one of the funniest bits on the internet for defending my man. And if he did that, I give this lawyer all the credit in the world. But this guy, who is not Harry Potter, by the way, you might think that he is, but he's not. If this guy was actually being serious during this whole bit, then I don't know what to tell you. Go ahead, Casey. Let him see this beautiful rendition of defending Chiefaholic.
This is not Chiefsaholic's last drive. And he believes, and we believe, that when the final whistle blows and all of the facts are known, that he is going to be redeemed in the eyes of his community, in the eyes of his fans, and in the eyes of the Chiefs' kingdom. This is not Chiefsaholic's last drive. And he believes, and we believe, that when the final whistle blows and all of the facts are known, that he is going to be redeemed in the eyes of his community, in the eyes of his fans, and in the eyes of the Chiefs' kingdom. This is not.
Now, that guy right there, you might argue, has to get back to Disney, or not Disney, Universal. Shout out. No free ads. He's probably got to get back to Universal lickety-split. You know what I'm saying? He took time off. He took a little PTO day, flew out to Kansas City, stood in front of the courtroom, and I'm pretty sure he just thought to himself, you know what, I'm going to get these reporters. You remember the guys that stood outside, or not stood outside, the guys that walked out of the Twitter headquarters when they were releasing everybody with huge boxes of stuff? And, of course, the gullible media jumps on it, and they run over to these guys. Did you see that? If you've not seen that, I want you to. I need you to find that clip. You got to find that clip. That's an Internet Hall of Fame clip. Casey, I don't know what else. Obviously, you got a lot going on over there. I don't mean to throw more on your plate. Didn't hire a replacement for you. Casey's thinking to himself, oh, man, I'm doing 2 jobs for 1. I should get paid more. I know what he does when he goes home, but that's probably here nor there. Casey, if you could possibly do me a favor and look up the Twitter headquarters fake interview. I'm sure it'll come up. But anyways, that's what this reminds me of. This reminds me of a guy that possibly went to Kansas City, decided he was going to stand in the front of the courthouse right when this whole Chiefaholics thing was going on. And he decided, you know what? I'm going to act like I'm this guy's attorney, and I'm going to make an Internet Hall of Fame video. Is that real? I don't know. Has it been confirmed that it's real? Are we getting spoofed? Is this a joke? Do you know, Elliot? You seem to be a man on the job.
I don't know if it's real, but I mean, hiring that guy to only speak in football metaphors or sports metaphors was perhaps the greatest bit of all time. I mean, this guy, Chiefsaholic, he's certainly not coming out of prison anytime soon. He's robbed multiple banks. Multiple. If you're robbing multiple banks, you don't stand a good chance at it, at parole or, leaving prison. So this might have just been an actor. I mean, there's a serious chance he just used a paid actor, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna hire this guy, and he's gonna act like my lawyer. He's gonna be really good about it. He's gonna make it seem convincing, but it's also gonna be funny. So maybe Chiefsaholic is that committed to the bit.
Not to get on Chiefsaholic's criminal career, but what is he doing robbing banks anyways? Like, do they even still have cash? Do they, like, I'm genuinely curious. Do banks still carry cash? Because it feels like everything is digital. Like 100 years ago, yeah, you got to go to the bank. That's where they're holding all the money. It's where they're holding all the gold and all this stuff. Nowadays, it's all done on computers, right?
NFL tickets are expensive, Reed. I don't know if you've ever seen it. They are. It's not cheap to be going to Chiefs games, especially when they go to the AFC Championship and the Super Bowl time after time. This man is committed to the job. He's a Chiefsaholic, and sometimes when you're not making enough money in life, you got to find a way to get there. And his way was, unfortunately for him, robbing banks. All right. If you've also tuned in the show today, and I know Ronnie is going to be screaming soon, talk sports. I promise we're going to get there. But bear with me. I'm just trying to make you laugh. Enjoy your day a little bit. Get you started on the right track. If you've not seen this is an Internet Hall of Famer as well, okay? Let me paint the picture for you. Again, Twitter just announced that they were laying off like 80% of their workforce.
Shout out Elon.
I don't know why that's a thing, but nonetheless, we're in a position at their headquarters.
It got you good.
We're in a position at their headquarters to where these guys that are pranksters decided they were going to go grab a bunch of they were going to carry cardboard boxes and walk out of there like they had just gotten fired. I just want to let you know these guys did not get fired, which makes this whole thing even funnier when you watch it. Go ahead, Casey.
Laid off. Yeah. Which team were you in?
I was on engineering.
Do you know how many?
I don't know. I know my.
Nobody knows anything. How did they tell you?
My director was.
I'm really sorry, by the way. I realized.
I went on in Tesla, man.
Right. Yeah, me too. Was it your entire team or just individuals?
So some people are in the Zoom meeting, and then in the Zoom meeting, you can see the other people that are in there.
Who?
Okay. And it makes me worry about the future of our democracy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It makes me worry about the future of celebrity conservatorships, like when Free Britney happened.
Michelle Obama wouldn't have happened.
And Elon Musk Twitter. I don't know, right? This used to be a town square.
All right. Listen, I know the chat's obviously pissed right now. Oh, this is a year old. Listen, there's people that don't know these things. If you don't know them, I'm sorry. But that's what it reminded me of when I seen this guy standing out front of a courthouse. Is like, this has to be a bit. All right. In other news, Jonathan Taylor was basically has been, what was the term the Colts used? He's been allowed to request a trade. And I think some of this is where, and you see this in business, you see this obviously certainly with employees, sometimes that people think that they're worth more than they really are, and you try to tell them that in a nice way as possible, and then at some point you're just like, fine, go find out for yourself. I think that's what the Colts have decided to do with Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is a guy that probably thinks that he's worth more than what he really is, especially if you go off of the Reed Mouse measurement of what a running back means to a team.
Correct.
And that's what the Colts have decided to do. They've decided, you know what, Jonathan, you think you're so important. We'll put you out on the trade market. We'll see who comes calling. We'll see what they offer. We'll let you know what they offer. And when they don't offer hardly anything at all, maybe you'll realize that it's a position that's just not valued that much anymore. That being said, Jonathan Taylor does have some value that I wonder if a team in which, like the Cincinnati Bengals, like it or not, if you could get away where you give up some late round draft capital, is it not at least worth entertaining? You guys, and I say you guys as in Reed, obviously is completely on the no side. Casey's laughing at me. I just want to hear from around the room a fan base or a group of fans here that are rooting for a franchise that has not won a Super Bowl. They are on the cusp of winning the Super Bowl. As to why you don't want to go get a guy that could be argued as one of the best running backs in the league.
It goes back to what I've always said, is that I've literally never looked at an NFL franchise. I've never looked at a team and said, they're one running back away from winning the big one. Do I think that the Bengals maybe are slightly better with Jonathan Taylor as opposed to Joe Mixon? Sure, absolutely. Is Jonathan Taylor worth giving up a first, second, hell, even third round pick? No. When you've already got a running back room that you believe in, you've got a proven veteran, you've got some exciting rookies and some exciting young guys that haven't had a whole lot of miles on the tread. So I don't know what we're talking about. It is objectively funny, though, that the Colts won't pay Jonathan Taylor top-tier running back money and then also say that they want a first-round pick for Jonathan Taylor. That is objectively funny, sending mixed signals.
Yeah, no offense, Trace, but people aren't going to go out of their way to give a first-round pick for Jonathan Taylor.
They're not going to do it for pretty much any running back.
It's just like the position doesn't really matter that much, and I say this with love and respect. Trace gets all out of shape when you say the running backs don't matter, but it's true. Nobody's going to want to give up anything. I certainly don't want to give up any of my players' picks, anything for Jonathan Taylor, when we have Joe Mixon, who's, to be quite honest, not that far behind him. What is he, 7 spots back behind him, 10 spots back? Joe Mixon's a top 15 running back in the National Football League. I don't know what the big difference would be if acquiring Jonathan Taylor in a pass-heavy offense. Could be wrong. I'll tell you what. If we could give them absolutely nothing, then I'd take him.
When was the last time that a move for a top-tier running back, like either trading or signing a guy to a big contract, has worked out?
I would say Christian McCaffrey worked out pretty damn good for the 49ers, and the only reason as to why they obviously didn't have a chance to move on and go win a Super Bowl is largely because their quarterback got hurt. And then their quarterback got hurt.
Correct.
And then their quarterback got hurt.
Yeah, but if you don't have a quarterback, your team's irrelevant.
Okay, well, what are we talking about?
If you don't have a running back, it doesn't matter.
That's fine. Well, just because you're going to try to be an engineer and everybody knows you need to take Calculus 1 before you take Calculus 2. I'm not arguing that Calculus 2 is more important than Calculus 1. What I'm trying to say is that Calculus 2 is still important. Like, running back position.
Do we think that the 49ers...
It's still important. If you want to try to convince me that it's not important, that's fine. Keep screaming at the wall.
It's objectively important.
It is important.
You're getting the wrong part of the argument.
No, what I'm suggesting is that there are levels to this. There are levels to the NFL to where, your team is only so good until you get a certain player, and then your team elevates just that little bit more. And to be honest with you, the Bengals have been right there. They're 1 or 2 plays away 2 years in a row to arguably winning the Super Bowl. And I would argue that going out and making that one little small extra move might be the difference. It could be the difference. And you only have a window of opportunity for so long. That's the other thing. Let's get into this really fast when we have Parker Blake coming on here at 10:30. Is this. I'm so tired of hearing about it. And I'm not trying to suggest that the Bengals won't be relevant and good while Joe Burrow's the quarterback. But to sit here and say, the window is Joe Burrow. Okay. Let's backtrack a little bit here. I'm not suggesting that for 1 second that the Bengals aren't going to be great this year. I'm not suggesting for 1 second that the Bengals franchise isn't in a really, really good spot. But I'm not going to sit here and listen to the fact that somehow, since you got Joe Burrow, that you're automatically going to be in Super Bowl contentions every single year. It's just not the case. It's not going to be the case. Yes, the Patriots did something one time in NFL history that makes you think otherwise. But outside the Patriots, and you can argue maybe the Chiefs have somewhat done that, but again, the Chiefs are in a position where I would argue that they've gone out and made moves, and they've tried to make sure that they've had the elite level talent around them at certain positions. And you're going to say, well, what about the running back position? I get it. I understand the concept of devaluing that, and you could sit here and tell me that you could say that Joe Mixon is a top 15 running back. My counter argument is going to be, where's the depth at that position? Why can't you have Jonathan Taylor and Joe Mixon? Why can't you have that?
Because why would you pay two guys like $10
Why are you worried about paying guys? Are you over the salary cap?
No, but there's just more important positions that need to be paid.
Right.
There's an offensive line, there's a defensive line, there's cornerbacks, there's safeties, there's a ton, there's a wide receiver room that needs to be fixed right now. We have T. Higgins. You have to pay him at some point. Right?
So you're convincing me that guys like Tyler Boyd's of the world, they're so much better than the third, fourth, and fifth receivers you can go out and find throughout the years. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers didn't draft a first round wide receiver for how many years? And supposedly that was the right thing to do. I don't believe that, but that's what supposedly people in Green Bay argued for years. We don't need wide receivers. Why? Because we got Aaron Rodgers. Oh, really? Oh, really? We don't need a running back because we got Joe Mixon. Oh, really? You don't want to go get Jonathan Taylor if somehow you can figure out a way to trade future picks in future years when you have a chance to win the Super Bowl right now, right in front of you? You can sit here and make fun of me and act like it's not a big deal. But and again, I'm not wishing this upon anybody, but if Joe Mixon goes down, what do you got? How old is Joe Mixon? You think he's going to play 16, 17 games in the NFL and be fresh and ready to go throughout the entire postseason?
Listen, the running, where are we talking? Yeah, we'll be fine. If Joe Mixon goes down, the Bengals will be fine. And the reason I know that is that every dynasty, every team that has had prominent success and won Super Bowls in this league has done it without a prominent running back. You look at the Patriots, and I know you said
say prominent. What about what about? Okay, change the word from prominent to productive. Now answer the question.
Well, that's the point of the argument, is that guys you get off the scrap heap are productive if you have a good line and you have a quarterback that they got to defend for. If you've got weapons on the perimeter that you got to defend for, it opens up a lot of holes in the box. That's the whole point of the argument. The Patriots, and you can say they're an anomaly, they just got guys off the scrap heap for two decades and it worked. The Chiefs are doing that right now. They're drafting guys in the 7th round and it's working. It's not. We're not doing this. We're not shooting darts in the dark here. We're not saying like we think this might work. We think we've got a system that works. We're saying this does work. This does work.
And
Mixon went down. Go ahead. Sorry.
100% would not work because he's not going to get traded to a team that's not going to sign him right away. And the Bengals are not going to sign him right away. They would use him as a rental, but that's just not going to play out the way that we want it. So.
Mixon went down last season. And Pirine was arguably better in his absence.
And that's my point.
What do you mean
you don't have Pirine anymore? I was banging the table all last year saying that Pirine has been a better running back, looks like the better running back, and he's the best running back in the room. And finally, he gets the ball. What happens? There's a change. You can laugh all you want about Pirine, but he's a better running back, in my opinion, than the two guys you got now.
We're laughing because every running back that the Bengals have had for the past 15 years has been good. And that proves to you that the running back position, you can get guys from wherever, and it's probably going to work out. If you've got a line, it's probably going to work out. Throw out any, and I know you can't name them because you're not a Bengals fan, throw out any Bengals running back for the past 15 years, probably a pretty productive running back.
Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, Bernard Scott. These aren't like household. Like Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis was a household name.
Giovanni Bernard, Jeremy Hill, Cedric Benson, Rudy Johnson, Corey Dillon, Joe Mixon. It's because you can draft them literally whenever.
What I find hilarious about all of this is that you automatically devalue the position at running back, but then you want to sit here and you want to act like the backup secondary defensive back is more valuable or just as important as the running back. And it's just not. It's just not. When you could sit here and say the depth at that position is important and all those types of things. But again, I hearken back to guys that I would say, what if you take those great running backs away that you're talking about? How bad are the Bengals then? And yes, the quarterback is the prerequisite to all this. If you don't have a quarterback in the NFL, we all know this. If you watch the NFL for even 1 year, hell, you could have your wife that's never watched football in the world. She could watch the NFL for 1 year. And if you don't have a quarterback, she's probably going to be like, well, if you don't have a quarterback, you can't win. Of course, I know that. That's like the prerequisite to even getting. That's the high school diploma to get into college. But once you get into college, I think the running back then at that point matters a little bit. It's almost like we've done the same thing we've done in our country over other subjects, to where we've gotten so far on one side that we've then overcorrected, and now we've gone so far the other way. Now it's like, well, running backs don't matter at all. You can pick up a 7th rounder. He's just as good as Jonathan Taylor. That is bonkers to me. It's crazy talk. It's crazy talk.
But the issue is it's a passing league. Who's protecting your quarterback? The offensive line. Who's the quarterback throwing to? The wide receivers. The only one that doesn't have a place is the running back, because he doesn't affect the quarterback's play at all.
Listen,
not at all.
The final analogy I'll give before we get into our interview with Parker Blake, and maybe it's a terrible analogy. I haven't thought it out too thoroughly, so I might just bury myself right here. But what is one of the most used appliances or used technology that you have in your house? It's a television, right?
It's my phone.
It's a television.
All right, fine, television.
All right,
let's do this.
You can buy a $2,000 television. You can do that right now, and it'll be great. It'll look great, and you can tell that it's better than the $450 television. But the $450, the $500 television that is an off-brand, a low brand, probably something that you got at Costco brand, still does a damn good job. And that's the point. You could probably spend that other $1,500 on something better in your house.
I'll tell you what we'll do today. I'll tell you where we'll go to lunch. We'll go to lunch at Gina's today to settle the debate. We'll see how good televisions matter and whether we think they're important. All right. That said, if you know that joke, you get it. If you don't know it, I'm sorry. But Parker Blake is in the chat. He is in the room. He is a part of Chatterbox Bengals now. Parker, thank you for joining the show, first and foremost. I'm sure you caught the tail end of us sitting here bickering, yelling back and forth about running backs' importance. We won't start with that because you're more important. You have more important things to talk about, because Reed obviously means that the running back position means nothing. But your expertise, if you will, Parker, I have a couple quick questions here. Is the offensive line, is that correct?
I'd like to say that, yes.
All right. So offensive line is obviously your strong point. We'll get into that in just a minute. But more importantly, you're from Utah. I do want to ask the question. You're from Utah and you're a Bengals fan. Can you walk me through how in the world that even came to be and what the story is behind that?
Yeah, no. So I was born in Lexington, out in Kentucky, obviously. And, I grew up. I had Reds gear, I had Bengals gear, and then we just moved back out here when I was a young kid. And I'm a loyal fan, as all of us Cincinnati folks are. We're loyal fans. And so I just stuck with it, that great run they had there in the, 2000s. If you couldn't catch the sarcasm, then that's on you. But, I'm here now, and I'm grateful that I'm here. And then my wife, she's been a Bengals fan for like 2 years now. And, I make fun of her all the time for that. She just came on as a bandwagon. So.
Well, sometimes it's timing is everything, Parker. Timing is everything. So if you've just started finding the Bengals and being a fan of late, that seems like pretty good timing, in my opinion. All right, the offensive line, something that people will want to always say, hey, you need depth, you need depth, you need depth. The Bengals have been kind of bit by the injury bug the last few years, if you will, by the offensive line having injuries. Your overall, I guess, general assessment on the offensive line, and then, of course, the Jackson Carman debate. We'll let you answer that on the back end of where you think he stands and what his future is as a Cincinnati Bengal.
No, for sure. I think we all feel pretty confident in the first five that we have. Brown, Volson, Teddy, Kappa. And even Jonah. I know there's been a lot of talk about Jonah Williams, but I think from what we've seen, what we saw last week, and what we've seen through clips of camp, or if you've been at camp, I think he looks just fine out there. And then I think depth-wise, this is one of the better positions they've been in. I think they have a guy in Deontay Smith that can be a very serviceable swing tackle. I think he's got potential to even battle for that right tackle spot next year. And then, we have a guy in Max Sharping that's really putting a lot of work this year to be a fourth interior O-line guy and battle Trey Hill for that backup center role. So, I think overall we're looking pretty good. The game day, they usually bring 8 anyway, the 5 starters, the 3 guys on the bench, and that's 7 guys right there that I feel very confident in moving forward with. And then, that third guy, just comes down to what the Bengals want. And then the 9th guy, and then I think we there's kind of a consensus that, as you're constructing your 53-man roster, that we're going to keep La'el Collins, bring him back from the PUP as that 10th guy. So I think they're pretty set, and I think they have a really good group. Personally, I'm really excited. I've seen a lot of good things in preseason from these depth guys. I have really high hopes for what this group looks like in the regular season. And just overall, I'm feeling pretty good. As far as Jackson Carman goes, I think we all kind of know what we're going to get out of him. I'm glad that the Jonah Williams versus Jackson Carman debate is over because that was ridiculous to start with. You got a seasoned veteran in the NFL and a guy that, was a healthy scratch for a majority of last year. So I think that conversation's settled. Personally, I hope we can get like a Billy Price type deal done, get Carmen out of here, bring in a guy, like Jonathan Taylor to make Reed happy, and then we'll be set. We'll go win 4 Super Bowls and all be happy.
Where is your take on that? Obviously, I go a little overboard on the running back situation because I have guys in the office that obviously devalue it completely, and so I feel like I have to go too far maybe on my end one way to try to prove my point. However, your overall assessment and opinion about the running back position that you currently have, and then I guess what would you say to the people that says the Bengals are right there on the edge? And depth's never a bad thing. If you can find a deal to go get a guy that's been proven as one of the best running backs in the league, and Jonathan Taylor, maybe you should do it. I don't know where you're at on that thought process, but your overall thoughts on, I kind of guess, that topic of conversation.
Yeah, no, I think being an O-line guy inherently, like, you're going to devalue the running back because you look at what Dallas did. If you have a good enough O-line, it doesn't really matter who you have in the backfield. And I think that goes for pretty much any position. If you have a great quarterback like a Tom Brady, it doesn't really matter who you have a wide receiver because they'll make it work. But I do think there's a place in the world for these high-paid running backs, these high-value running backs. But, unless you're getting rid of Mixon and bringing in Taylor, who, again, you guys talked about, he wants an extension. He's going to want to go to a team. That's not just going to be a one-year rental deal, which I think, he'd be great as a one-year rental if they get him for a little cheaper. But if you're going to bring in a guy like that, you're going to have to extend him. You're going to have to clear out the room. You can keep Chase Brown, you can keep Travion, you can keep Evans if you want to keep Evans. But I think you can't. I think it's too crowded right now to risk getting rid of somebody just to have JT and Mixon in the backfield. I don't know. That's just kind of where I sit on that topic, I guess, where the O-line looks good, and whoever we have in the backfield is going to look pretty solid just because they're going to open up some lanes. This run game is going to be solid. Schematically, they've changed to make it work a little better. But overall, I think, who the guy they have there is just fine for now. We'll obviously figure out that situation when it comes. Hopefully they can get a guy in the draft, and we don't have to go pay someone like we've been doing on the O-line.
Okay, that's fair. I harken back to a question that I was thinking before the show. I wonder if I have a little bit of pull around here, not enough as much as I'd like to say that I have. Do you feel like you're the third wheel on Chatterbox Bengals at all? Do we gotta nudge those guys, get you on the screen a little bit more? When are you making your appearance on Chatterbox Bengals with Just Eric and Game On?
Yeah, no. I coach high school football, so these Friday games, I have to watch them late. I'm not able to be a part of the Chatterbox crew. However, I'm really excited to hop on this week. Let everyone know that the O-line is the most important position and, the most exciting position to watch, even though, one of those is definitely a lie. But I wouldn't say I feel like the third wheel. However, right now, I do feel like the little redheaded stepchild. They went out and had a great show, and I'm just sitting here biding my time, waiting for everyone to show me the love that those two great guys get because they have awesome personalities, and I'm like a 2x4. So hopefully I'm not bringing up the rear, but I don't think I'm ever going to, Game On's got a lot of energy. I think he's going to be that energy guy. I don't think I can bring what he can bring. He's got the juice, man.
Yeah, Game On certainly gets excited. The final question that I have for you before we go here, and I turn it over to Casey perhaps and or Elliot and Reed to ask you the final parting questions as Bengal fans. I do want to say to you, you probably may or may not know this, I am a Packer fan. So my fandom for the Bengals, my knowledge for the Bengals is not nowhere near as it would be for the Cincinnati Reds. But that being said, in your opinion, Collinsworth just said yesterday, I believe, on the Dan Patrick Show, that he believes that this is the year the Cincinnati Bengals finally get over the hump. In your opinion, not to have you be negative or pessimistic, but if you do believe that, what do you think that the ultimate reason as to why they wouldn't be the Super Bowl champions if you do think that they will win the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I really think it just comes down to if they can make this new scheme work. We're putting Frank Pollock as the run game coordinator in a weird spot because, he's traditionally been a wide zone guy. We're making him convert to the gap scheme, but they have, gone through a full personnel change up front. I think they're pretty deep on the D line. But if we're talking about what, would inhibit them from getting, even to the AFC Championship or through the AFC Championship, it's going to be defensive, because I feel like this offense has really come together. They have a lot of great weapons. They're going to give Joe Burrow, who's got one of the quickest time to throw in the league, a lot of time to start dissecting defenses. This offense is going to be good. But if this defense can't figure it out, I know they've retained their linebackers. I've talked a lot the last couple of weeks about how their second string D-line could be a starting D-line for a lot of teams in the league. But if this back end can't figure it out, and I know Lou Anarumo likes to have them kind of control the defense, make sure everyone's in the right spot, make adjustments, all of that good stuff. If they can't figure it out on the back end, and honestly, the thing that's inhibited this team previously, if they can't stay healthy, because the big thing that I think a lot of people need to talk more about is the best way to get to the Super Bowl, to get to the final dance, is health and luck. And the Bengals were one of the unluckiest teams, especially Joe Burrow last year. He just, wasn't getting the ball bouncing his way. And then we had all those health issues coming down the stretch. We lost Chidobe Awuzie early. Like, it was just, there's all these other pieces that go into it that the Bengals just haven't seemed to, survive, honestly. And if they aren't able to stay healthy this year, which I know obviously you can't really control that much, but if they can't stay healthy, I think that's number one. And number two, even if they do stay healthy, if we're getting burned on the back end of the defense, every game, or we're just really getting in shootouts every week, that's not a sustainable model for success. So they have to stay healthy. They have to, at least get back to average on the luck scale, because I guess that's an actual stat now. And then overall, if everything just keeps clicking, keeps moving, and there's not really a lot of frustration of whether it's play calling or, game planning or scheme or all those other words that, football guys like to use. If all of that comes together, and that's a lot of different variables, but if all of that comes together, they're going to make it. But it's very hard to get all of those things to line up every single year, and they just haven't seemed to, have that ever happen for them.
Fair enough. Casey McAllister, obviously a very knowledgeable Bengal fan, has a question for you that he wants to ask.
Yeah, I actually got two for you. First question is, so what do you think they're going to do with La'el Collins? Because he's just kind of sitting back there right now, taking up some cap space, and it seems like they got the right tackle figured out. What do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, what we need to remember is his contract is heavily incentivized around game checks, right? So if he's not on the active roster, because coming in he had a bunch of health issues. So if he's not on the active game day roster, we're actually saving money from his, overall contract. I know his base is around 4.5 to 5, and that's not really significant in the grand scheme of things, or pieces of the pie, as everyone's been talking about ever since Back Together Day. But I think what they should do, I don't know, I obviously don't know what they're planning to do, but if we can get him on the pup for a few weeks, let him get fully healthy. I know everyone wants to say, oh, well, when he comes back and he's fully healthy, let's just put him in for Jonah. But I think, there's a chemistry aspect to that people don't think about. But if Collins can take this full year, right, this full season, and just kind of rest, maybe be in those jumbo sets, maybe just kind of be a veteran presence in the locker room and just get back to 100, like a true 100%, not the 100% that we saw last year, but a true 100% healthy, rehabbing from the knee, the hip, the back, like every old guy has to once they get to a certain age. If we can get him 100% healthy, I think we're going to have a very solid right tackle again next year when, inevitably Jonah Williams isn't back with the team.
Gotcha. And the scheme that they're planning on running, it's a power scheme, right? It's like a lot of counters, a lot of pulling.
Yep.
Do you think that's really going to make a difference for Joe Mixon? I mean, like, scheme-wise, it seemed like he did better in power and in years past. So is it safe to assume that he's going to do better this year?
Yeah, and I think the benefit they're going to have, and again, it's just the whole conversation of what's more important, the running back or the O-line or the scheme, but they've gone through a full personnel overhaul in the last couple of years. They went from having these smaller guys, more athletic guys to run that zone scheme to getting these big maulers, like Kappa, like Bolson, like Brown, who can just get in there and kind of bully guys, get those, I always call them free yards when we're just driving the D-line off the line of scrimmage to get the running back, yards before contact, right? And that's where I think the power game with the personnel, the gap scheme, with the new personnel they have is going to be a lot more effective just overall for the run game. I don't know if it necessarily makes Joe Mixon better, but it definitely is probably going to make him look better statistically. Just because I think he's going to be – I would be surprised if his yards before contact number isn't impressive this season, if that makes any sense. I think that's the benefit that they get out of the gap scheme.
Yeah, and my last question, I said I only had 2. I got 3. Last year, the offensive line did not play in the preseason. Now, I was a guy that said that didn't matter, that they shouldn't have played. The people that said they should have kind of looked like they were right. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think they should be maybe taking a drive the last game of this preseason?
Well, what we have to remember from, the slow start they had last year is don't just look at it as, oh, Joe Burrow's getting pressure, Joe Burrow's getting sacked, whatever stat you want to pull. But you have to also remember, and I put this out on Twitter, at the time, it's X now, but I put this out on Twitter last season when I was first, getting going with all my O-line talk on that platform. And you can't talk bad about Joe Burrow. I learned that very quickly. But if you look through those first couple of weeks, I wouldn't even blame the O-line as a whole. It's more, Joe Burrow was coming off of a major surgery. He was coming into a season, honestly a little late. He did lose that offseason, unlike this year how he, didn't actually lose the offseason, even though he's not at camp. He might not be at practice. He's still working. He's still getting his work in. He hasn't lost all that weight. He's the same Jack Joe Burrow that we all saw beginning of camp. And I think last year he just felt uncomfortable. He was in the pocket. He was holding the ball for a long time. When he wasn't holding the ball, he was throwing it to the guys in black and yellow week 1. That was a bad game from him, and I think it was just kind of getting back into that football group because he hadn't played football. Whereas this year, he's going to come in a lot better. And I think people undervalue, the amount of reps this team is getting together during camp, during the preseason, whether or not they're playing in games. I know there's a whole conversation about getting live reps, live bullets, whatever you want to call it. But you also have to remember this Bengals defense is pretty legit. And so they're getting very high quality reps just in practice against their own guys. This isn't like some of these other teams going into practice and they're playing scrubs on scrubs, or maybe you have a high quality offense and a very average to, below average defense that you're working against. So you need those live reps against better quality talent. The Bengals are playing a top 5 defense in practice every day. And that's, I think, more than plenty for them to come in and feel ready to go week 1.
Hey, Parker. Yeah, I had a question. So I'm going to take these off real quick. So last year, one of the big storylines was the Bengals not being able to get the home field advantage in the playoffs, not getting the 1 seed, not having really the chance for it. How many wins would you project the Bengals would need to get this season to get that seed? Because you look at the AFC. The AFC is tough right now. It's incredibly tough. It's incredibly competitive in pretty much every division except for the AFC South. You go to the NFC, there's not a lot of talent anywhere, especially the NFC North. It's just a terrible division over there. It's just 49ers, Eagles. How many wins would you project right now the Bengals get? And how many would you project would be needed to get the 1 seed?
Yeah, and I think that conversation gets really tough because, you have the AFC East. That they have some decent competition over there, and that's, I think, similar to the AFC North, which obviously the AFC North is the best division in football. I don't even know who even plays in the NFC North. I think there's some green team up there. I've never heard of. But I do think with the Chiefs being in a division that's a little softer, they're going to – it's what we talked about down the backstretch of last season where they had to win some games that were very unlikely for them to – they had to lose some games in the Bengals' favor at the end of last season against some teams that, weren't really highly competitive. And even towards the end of the season, you start to lose kind of that mojo. And so it's hard because the Bengals need at least, I feel like, 11 or 12 to even win the division. And so when you're talking about that 1 seed, it's almost turning into college football where if you have, 1 to 3 losses, you're in a situation where you're probably not getting that 1 seed just because some of the schedules these other teams have. So, you got to put it up around 15-ish just to be in contention for that 1 seed. And that's where it gets a little rough down the stretch because I think the number is around 15.
Really? I have one more question. I see in the background there's some sort of animal cage of some sort, animal box. What is it? Is that a snake?
Yeah, no. So it's my wife's gecko.
Okay.
This is Milo. He's my play-by-play assistant over here. You know, he's got a lot of great takes back there. He's asleep right now, or I'd pull him out and let him talk to the people. But
does the
just
gecko
just a leopard gecko?
Does the gecko give gambling picks?
Yes, and they're awful. Don't listen to them.
Okay, all right. Then I won't. Okay, I won't. I won't.
My bank account definitely does not agree with a lot of the picks that he makes, so that's why he's just a play-by-play guy. We'll leave the gambling to my small brain.
Fair enough, Parker. Thank you for coming on the show. I do want to remind you and let you know, though, before you get off here, that you said that Tom Brady, probably doesn't need receivers. He did get one receiver, though, in 2007 when they won, every game but one. I know you're going to say maybe they didn't win the Super Bowl, so blah, 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 blah. But he did have a guy named Randy Moss, and he threw the most – it just so coincidentally, he threw the most touchdowns that he's ever thrown in his entire career the year that he had Randy Moss. But that's here nor there. Sometimes, I guess, maybe just having really good players around you helps everybody else out. I don't know. Jonathan Taylor, I don't know. Maybe you should consider it. I want you to sleep on it, Parker. Let me know what your thoughts on maybe tomorrow.
Will do.
All right. Thank you, Parker. Parker, for those that don't know, you can find him, Parker Blake, on Twitter. And more importantly, he's going to be also on Chatterbox Bengals with Game On and Just Eric. They did a really good – I'm not just saying this because it's our stuff. They did a really nice job for their first show. When you're behind this microphone, you're staring at the camera. You know that you're live on air for basically anybody to say anything about you. It takes a little bit to get comfortable. I thought Game On and Just Eric did a really, really nice job. I expect by week 5 or 6 that they'll be in their element. They'll be having fun. They'll be doing an elite show. Not that they're not already doing a great job, but like with anything else, you get better and better as time goes on. And having Parker along with that crew, I think that'll be good. Another show I want you to know about, and I'm telling you this, I don't want to overhype this because I think sometimes when you overhype things, people might be disappointed, but I think that I could overhype this and you'd still be very, very, very impressed, is Kyle Caskey. He's going to be Chatterbox Clicker. Every Tuesday, he's going to break down film. And let me tell you something. When he sent me a text yesterday on his, he said, hey, I'm good to go. Here's some show notes. These are things. This is what I'm planning on doing. Obviously well more organized than I would ever be. His guy, you want to talk about being prepared, very prepared. For those that don't know, Kyle Caskey coached in the NFL, and for Reed's take, he basically didn't coach in the NFL because he was the running backs coach. But outside of that, Reed, he did coach in the NFL. He was in the running backs group for quite some time. Very knowledgeable about the game of football. Will be great for Chatterbox Clicker. That airs tonight. Am I off on that? If that aired tonight, 9 p.m.
Yep, 9 p.m. Casey's going to be producing it. Kyle's going to be great. He coached for 13 years in the NFL with, coincidentally enough, he coached for 3 different NFL franchises. The Bengals for the longest tenure, I think 13 years with the Bengals, and then a couple years with the Jaguars and the Lions. So he just got all the big cats out of the way. But he's incredible, knowledgeable. We had a couple pre-shows, and it's going to be – you guys really do want to tune in. If you like football, if you like the Bengals and you like breaking down film, or even if you haven't done that before and you're a little curious, please tune in. It'll give you a greater appreciation for the game of football and really the team, and give you a little more insight and make you a more knowledgeable fan. What's funny, Trace, you made that Randy Moss comment.
Yes.
He played 4 years for the Patriots. It just so happened to be the only 4-year stretch in which Tom Brady didn't win a Super Bowl.
Must be.
And also, he wasn't a running back, so it's almost like it doesn't matter.
Mr. Mo with the Super Chat asks who the running back was. Unfortunately, I'm not the fastest with this. I'll find out who the running back was. I'm sure it's a name that you're going to know. In fact, I want to say off the top of my head, was it not like a
was it not Ben Jarvis?
For who? Who we
for
talking
the Patriots in
That
2007,
year?
the running back.
That year?
Falk, is there a
I'm almost wasn't it? Was it not?
I mean, you guys have
Like in
computers in front of
2007,
you.
we'll get it.
You guys can figure that out.
Couldn't have been Corey Dillon, right?
Corey
was
Dillon
gone
would
by
have been
then.
right around
No,
that time.
no,
Would have been
no.
right around that time.
It was not Corey Dillon, guys.
It was 2007, right?
Yes. They played in the Super Bowl. That's what's funny is they didn't win the Super Bowl. Okay, they won every single game besides one.
It was Falk, Kevin Falk.
Kevin Falk. There you go. I remembered. Kevin Falk.
Who was a 31-year-old running back on his
Yep.
drafted in the what?
All right. We've beat this topic about as dead as one can get. We'll see where it all goes. I guess we'll find out. I was told that Bijan Robinson was a terrible pick in the first round. I was also told that Gibbs was a terrible pick in the first round. We'll see if those two respective players help out their respective team.
Hey, if you want to look at last year's top paid running backs and see how the teams went, we could go down that list. I got the
Let's
top.
do it. Can we do it? Let's just do it for fun.
Yeah, let's do it for fun. Top 10 paid running backs in the NFL last year.
Here we go.
Number 1, Derrick Henry. Had a great year.
Yep.
He had a great year. Titans didn't make the postseason.
No quarterback.
Didn't make the postseason. Number 2, Ezekiel Elliott was the second highest paid running back in the league. The Cowboys won a playoff game.
Got hurt.
Well,
Ezekiel
he-
Elliott in 2 playoff games rushed 23 times and had 50 yards of rushing yards.
Well, he was replaced by Tony Pollard.
Right.
Okay.
Let's go to Alvin Kamara.
Saints did great last year, right?
Okay, number 4, Dalvin Cook.
Oh.
Vikings were great. They lost the first round of the postseason.
Yep. Defense was terrible.
Yep. Now we're going to Joe Mixon. Bengals made it to the AFC Championship game, and you constantly talk about how the Bengals need to upgrade at the running back position. Well, he was pretty good. Number 6, Christian McCaffrey. Had a great year.
Quarterbacks got hurt. Yep.
Correct. James Conner was number 7. Cardinals played great. Cardinals had a great season. Keeping it on down, we'll go to Saquon Barkley, who's on his rookie contract. So it was just because he got drafted so high that he was paid that much. Number 9, Leonard Fournette, who the Buccaneers had a losing record. He rushed 10 times for like 20 yards in the playoff game. And then finally, Kareem Hunt, who was the backup running back for the Browns, who did not have a winning record. They were 7-10.
Okay. We'll see where it all ends up, where we go, how you guys are feeling about the running back room in week 4 or 5 for the Cincinnati Bengals. And you know what? Chase Brown.
I won't feel a whole lot about it either way.
No, I'm just saying. And you know what? I actually say this about the Bengals. Like, there's a chance that Chase Brown ends up being great. I hope that he is. I think that P. Ryan, like it or not, say that it's not a big loss, say that you don't think it matters, it does not important. I think P. Ryan's a loss. I think it is. Now, to be fair, the Bengals tried to keep him. And unfortunately, he decided that he didn't want to play second fiddle or whatever his really notion was. I don't know if he ever really came out and say it, but P. Ryan obviously felt like he wanted to go somewhere else, and he did, and I believe he's in Denver now. So good luck to him. One thing I wanted to ask you guys about. You have all these different things that are that in sports landscapes. What's the next big sport? Is there a next big sport? Or are we in a country now to where there is not going to be any more really sports that are going to come on? Every single time you hear about another sport trying to make a push, and obviously you hear every single time there's a World Cup, soccer is going to be on its comeback. So I don't say that soccer hasn't grown in this country, because I think that it obviously has. But soccer is already an established sport, right? That's not really what I'm talking about when I get into this. You have people that argue that pickleball might be the next big sport. Are you buying into that? And then the reason I ask these questions is because I read an article that ESPN, there's some rumors that they're looking to possibly get into the WWE business and make a push for that. Is that a real thing? Like, are we, and I say we, are sports fans, and I'm not downplaying WWE. There's obviously a market for it. There's clearly people that love it. But are we really going to push that into the category of sports? Is that a sport? Because I don't believe that should fall underneath the category of sports. Not that we need to spend a ton of time on this, but your overall quick thoughts on that.
So it's sports entertainment is how they how they had to describe it. I obviously am a wrestling fan, have been most of my life. Haven't watched in recent years. But the thing about the WWE is they signed a deal with ESPN a couple of years ago, and now if you watch enough SportsCenter, they do a plug for whenever there's one of the big 4 pay-per-views, which is WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series. Anytime that those, they normally do a plug, or if someone's making, they craft it. Obviously, it's all staged and everything like that, but it's still fun to watch. I oftentimes describe it as like it's male reality television. When girls like my wife last night sat down and watched The Bachelor. I mean, it's the exact same thing as watching WWE. It's not the best. It's not the most mind-provoking way to spend time, but it's still a lot of fun if you just take it for face value. The thing about the WWE is that I don't know if it'll ever reach the popularity of what it once was. In the Attitude Era in the mid to late 90s into the early 2000s, it was one of the most popular television shows on, like, its ratings were getting 10 million. Like, it was rivaling Monday Night Football. It was rivaling all these things, and it was on Monday night. So, like, you had to pick if you wanted to watch WWE Monday Night Raw or if you wanted to watch Monday Night Football. It was competing with those things. I don't think it'll ever get to that point once again, because a lot of a lot of the allure has gone away because it is so widely known now that it is not real. I don't know why anyone ever would think it was real, but yeah, it's just a fun thing. I think it's rising in popularity again.
Could you imagine if back in the day they had social media at all?
That's
like
the thing.
The biggest appeal for me for WWE right now is the fact that the stories transcend the actual matches themselves. They travel onto social media. There's spats back and forth, and if you really are following along, you can
That's the reason that it's so different than where it was in the Attitude Era. So one of the biggest wrestlers of all time is Undertaker, right? Trying to convince in a social media world that there's a zombie priest that is coming out every Friday to settle his beefs with his undead brother Kane, who came from the paths of hell. That's a tough sell in 2023. But that's what we sold back in 1993, 1995, 1996, whenever the Attitude Era was in the championship era. So that's tough to sell. We can't have these characters anymore in the WWE. Now it's become a little more grounded in reality with the modern day guys.
Yeah, I think WWE sucks. But to answer Trace's question, Formula One is the only sport I can think of that would be like a new coming sport. But that's in large part because they have a TV show on it, right? I think any of these Netflix shows, I think golf could get big again just because, it's golf, it's already big. But take a younger audience, right? I think that's what you're seeing with Formula One. That's the only other sport. As far as a ball and some kind of hoop or something like that, that's done. We've seen it all. But Formula One's the only sport I could think of that would be a rising sport that could still take over the country.
Are we at all worried about the? I don't know. I think let me say this first. I think football will always be wildly popular. I really do believe. But nowadays, less and less kids are playing football for health reasons, for obvious reasons. And are we worried about the future of football in the capacity of maybe it's not going to be the same product? There's not going to be as many athletes on the field because athletes are going to other sports nowadays.
I think that's always a topic of conversation. It's a concern for sports, but the reality is, I think it's too embedded into certain cultures for that to ever really make a difference. Just because, and I know that I'm being very. Is this politically correct or stereotypical? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you're going to say that I shouldn't say these types of things, but I'm going to say them anyways because I feel like it's the truth, and everybody that has a reasonable, rational brain is the truth. Is the lady that has a PhD in psychology that has a son or two that really isn't all that athletic going to allow their son and or daughters to play football or contact sports? Probably not. They're probably going to be like, no, there's too much danger here, Johnny. You're not allowed to play football. You're not doing it. The truth is that, not trying to be mean to the PhD's daughter and or son, but they weren't going to be the ones that we were watching on Sundays anyways, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The people that we're watching on Sundays, sons and daughters that play on NFL Sundays, the vast majority of them, that is their culture, that is their love, that is their lifestyle, lends itself to playing that sport. Very much in this town, if you like it or not, it's diverged a little bit. But for a very, very long period of time in Hamilton, you played baseball. That's what you did. That was part of it. If you didn't play baseball, for lack of a better term, you either weren't an athlete or you were a loser. And I know that that's probably not the right thing to say, but that's the truth. I'm not saying that's how it is anymore. But in a way, when people say, are you concerned about people not letting their sons and daughters play this sport? Where? When? I mean, do we think Tom Brady's not going to allow his son or daughter to play
Tom Brady actually would be
sports?
A dad that would
I don't
not let
think
his
so.
son play football.
I'm just saying in general. Adrian Peterson, is he going to say that his son or daughter can't play? We're talking about generations of people that have grown up to where that's their identity within their household, is how good is your family within athletics. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
I think parents know if your child has an athletic gift, right? I think that's going to be a big part of it too. If you're like me, and I grew up very short, I'm still very short, but I was very short. I wasn't the fastest guy. I could play sports. I was very good at sports, but football was just never in the cards. I didn't have the athletic capabilities. But you are seeing it. I grew up on the west side of Cincinnati. There's a lot more Catholic schools that are combining now in football. I think Vizzy's by themselves still, but it's like Victory's with somebody, St. Teresa's with somebody now, St. Dominic's paired with somebody. So there's all these schools are kind of pairing up because there is a shortage of people. So I think there is.
But how many of those schools that you just mentioned, to my point,
Yeah.
how many of those schools have anybody that's ever played professional football and or high-level college football out of their alumni in the history of those schools?
Well, Vizzy has quite a bit. But, yeah, I get your point. I think – and, again, you're right. You're right. It's never going to go away. People are still
right. I'm not saying it's going to go away. I'm just saying, do we think that the
quality is going
Yeah,
down?
do we think that there's just – I mean, it's a numbers game, right? And I'm looking at a Forbes article right now that says that youth participation in football – for ages right around 12 is down 35% since 2008. That's 1/3 of the players are no longer playing football ages 12 than there were 15 years ago. That's a problem. That's 1/3 of the players. And to think that we're not going to have a decrease in ability on the players on the field, it seems almost just unsensical.
I get the concept. I understand the theory behind it. I'm not buying the narrative. I'm not buying it 1 second. I get that the fact of the matter is that maybe more and more parents are becoming a little more aware that you probably shouldn't have, little Johnny and Ricky running around at 8 years old smashing helmets in little small man football. But the truth is that by the time they get to 7th, 8th, 9th grade, the athletic ones that are probably going to go on and play high-level college football and or go to the NFL, they're going to exist. They're going to be there, and they're going to be there until we're at least dead and gone, period. So if you're worried about the level of play, maybe it is in 3, 4, 5 generations from now. But American football in and of itself is too big of a product for the product itself to regress in regards to the level of play. Athletes in general have done nothing since the start of everybody's life, have gotten better and better and better and better. In fact, one would venture to say that the only reason in the NFL that the quarterback position is so valued is because it's a skill-based position and it's not an athletic-based position as much. And that's the real reason why their quarterbacks are really, I guess, the only thing that you could say is truly valued in the NFL. If we want to get to value, the only thing that's really valued at a premium in the NFL is the quarterback position. And I would argue it's legitimately the only position that you could say that a non-athletic, and by non-athletic, we got to be a little careful when saying that, but hopefully you get my point. A non-athletic player could possibly play at a good and or elite level. Their RAS score as a NFL quarterback might not matter, but every other position, to Casey's point and to be fair, could be solved by a RAS score because you just need to be a really good athlete with good coaches and you learn some techniques, and by the time you learn the techniques, you're going to be just as good enough player to be able to play the position at a high level. So we'll see where it all ends up going, but I'm not worried 1 second that the level of play is going to regress because in my lifetime, legitimately athletes have gotten nothing but better and better and better and better.
That's a fair point that I guess I didn't realize. I was not taking into the part that, just athletes nowadays have a lot more opportunities and a lot more places to learn from. We have the internet now. You didn't just have one guy teaching you how to hit 30 years ago. I mean, everything you knew about hitting 30 years ago came from your one coach. Now you can pretty much get it from wherever. So there's just a lot more opportunities now. I will, we were talking off air, and I argue, you and me yell at each other a lot when we're arguing and stuff like that, all out of love. But when me and Spur, we only argue and yell at each other about one topic, and that is how important a running back or a quarterback is to a team, a championship team. And I argue that a quarterback is, if you're making a concoction and you need a percentage point of a championship team, I think a quarterback is at least a third of the team. Like if you don't have an elite quarterback, I mean, you're looking at the last 23 World Series or Super Bowl champions, only 2 of them have been non-elite quarterbacks. So I would argue that it's like 33%, if not greater, that your quarterback play is to a championship team. What would you say, like if you had to give a percentage of elite quarterback play being to a championship team? Because we talked about, you need 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power and will. No.
I like that.
Nice.
That was very nice. 30. I'm right around the same point, 30 to 40% importance. If you don't have now I could argue that if you had a serviceable quarterback, you could definitely win a Super Bowl with elite level defense. That's been proven in the past. The Ravens have done that. And, but this day and age, the way that the rules are, the way that the league is going, it's trending. It is very much an offensive-driven league, and it's all predicated off of the quarterback. And, I'd make the argument right now, and I don't think it's all that crazy to say, that if the Dallas Cowboys had an elite-level quarterback,
right,
I think they win the Super Bowl. I think they win the Super Bowl last year if they had an elite-level quarterback.
I don't know if they win the Super Bowl, but they definitely are – a serious contender. I mean, we talk about the Cowboys like they're this periphery contender. Like, yeah, if a lot of things go right, the dominoes fall in the right way, then yeah, they can win a Super Bowl. But if they have, one of the 5 elite quarterbacks in the league, they have the Joe Burrows, the Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens, even Justin Herberts or Jalen Hurts. If they have one of these guys, then yeah, they are serious contenders. And that's the whole point of the argument. Yeah, dominoes can fall the right way, i.e. the Tampa Bay Buccaneers from 21 years ago and the Ravens from over a decade ago with Joe Flacco. But every other Super Bowl champion has had one of the elite quarterbacks in the league, and that will continue, if not become even more apparent as the years go on, which, to bring up the point you brought up earlier about having the window of a player's career, if you have a window, what is it? And, the joke has been it's whole Joe Burrow's career. Well, if Joe Burrow is as elite as we think he is, and I believe that he is, then yeah, the window is his whole career.
The only counter argument, and again, I'm a Joe Burrow fan. I think Joe Burrow is the real deal. And what I'm about to say is not to try to be pessimistic towards him 1 second. I think that people could take that out of context, what I'm about to say. So I wanted to predicate that and get out in front of this before I say it, is this. I don't know if Joe Burrow's really been the ultimate reason as to why the Bengals have had superior success, though, when it comes to the postseason. I think that their defense is the number one reason as to why they've won games. If you take and again, maybe I'm being too harsh. Maybe you're saying and listen, I think, again, to be fair, Joe Burrow, his offensive line in and of itself the past few years has made it to where it's damn near impossible for him to be, what I think his ceiling is. I think that if you give Joe Burrow the line of a Tom Brady when he played for the Patriots, if you give Joe Burrow the line of
Mahomes,
the Colts, yeah, at some point Joe Burrow has a ceiling. I don't think he's reached the ceiling because of that specifically. So I'm also countering my argument to that. But in the Chiefs game, to get to the Super Bowl last year in Arrowhead, I don't know if Joe Burrow really played above what many other average or above average quarterbacks in the NFL would have played at. That's the sad truth too, though. So as much as we want to sit here and act like Joe Burrow's that guy, and I think he is, he's also not really just put the team completely on his back and won a game in a very, very big moment. It's always been the defense that's helped him and kept him in the game. And I'm not suggesting for a second that's Joe Burrow's fault, but the Titans game, 100%. If the defense doesn't force those turnovers, they don't even sniff winning that game. Joe Burrow's never had to go out and win a football game. And again, I harken back to like Kurt Warner's of the day. Kurt Warner has to go out and score 30, 40 points at times to win the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow's never had to do that. He's never had a defense that's been so bad that you pretty much have to go down the field and score. Otherwise, the other team's going to probably get a lead on you. And then by the time you get down, 21 points, it's going to require you to change a game plan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All that being said, it does, and that's where Sean's right. It does take, obviously, and this seems like a very, very obvious statement, it does take a full team to win the Super Bowl. But I do think that part of that prerequisite, if we're being completely honest, has to be the quarterback. You got to have a serviceable quarterback, at least this day and age. Does Trent Dilfer win a Super Bowl right now in this current landscape of the NFL? I don't think he does. I mean, you could say that he maybe can. I don't think he does. Back in the day when you could hold, when you could hold receivers and you could kind of, quite frankly, be much more aggressive and therefore allow it to be a little bit of an uglier game. The defense it becomes more of like a defensive game than it becomes more of like we see now, much more offensively driven. You could make the case that I think that I think you have to have a quarterback, which I don't think is a very, very strong argument to make. I know that I see both sides, I guess.
I think to your point, the every playoff win Joe Burrow has been in large part because of the defense, not because of himself or the offense. I think every single one. The issue is he has 5 playoff wins Joe Burrow has 5 playoff wins in his first 3 seasons as an NFL quarterback. No other quarterback has ever done that. So that's where I think the line is skewed, where it's like, is Joe Burrow the reason the Bengals are out of games? I think he is a large part of the reason why the Bengals are in these games. That the defense, again, probably wins you the game, but Joe Burrow is still a large factor in those games.
Yeah. Listen,
my question to you is this, and this is something that we're not going to know. My question to the room and to the chat. We know Joe Burrow is going to get paid. When Joe Burrow gets paid, it's going to cut your opportunities down on other places. You're not going to have this perfectly well-balanced team, right?
Right.
The question is do we think that Joe Burrow is good enough to mask the problems that he's going to produce when he gets paid? That answer is yet to be determined, whether you like it or not. You can say you love Joe Burrow as much as you want, but the truth is, until you see what actually happens and the cuts they have to make, you don't know for sure if Joe Burrow is the guy that can mask the problems that he's going to create. And by all God, let me say this clear. Joe Burrow should get paid as much money as you could possibly make in the NFL. He's the best quarterback that the Bengals have ever had. I think, and I know that people are going to say, oh, Boomer Esiason and all these guys. In general terms, what he's done for this franchise in this city, he's the best quarterback and leader that this franchise has ever had. He should get paid for it. But you also can't say for sure whether or not when he gets paid that he isn't going to make a difference when it comes to financial cuts that are going to be made in other positions. And at this point, to Elliott and to your credit, they are a well-rounded team. You can't knock Joe Burrow for it. You just can't sit here and say for sure that he's going to be worth it when he doesn't have a defense, and maybe they'll find ways to get guys on rookie deals and they'd run an unbelievable system in a team. I'm not saying that that's not possible either. But Joe Burrow, we're in the honeymoon phase right now. I think we're still in the honeymoon phase. I'm not saying it's going to turn sour, but you'd be fooling yourself, I think. And again, I know I'm an outsider. You'd be fooling yourself if you think that you're not in the honeymoon stage with Joe Burrow.
Every point that I think both of you guys have made is fair. It's absolutely fair that we haven't seen Joe Burrow's great playoff performance yet. We haven't seen that yet. It's coming. We're going to see it at some point where he throws for 460 yards and stuff like that. He's played well in some games. He's done great, but the defense has been a large part of it. But also, we're talking about a guy that in back-to-back years has broken the franchise record in passing touchdowns. We're talking about a guy that has the highest completion percentage in NFL history. And all while doing this, while getting sacked 92 times over the past 2 seasons. This is a guy that is 100% the future of the team. He's a guy that I think can mask those problems. I think he is to the point, to the level, and he draws these comparisons all the time that is unjust and not fair to the guy that he's getting compared to, but to the guy that won, so many Super Bowls that it has become laughable in Tom Brady. And the fact that throughout Tom Brady's career, everyone looked at his team and been like, yeah, but couldn't other guys do what he's doing right now? Couldn't other guys doing what he's doing right now? We could absolutely do the exact same thing at the end of Joe Burrow's career and be like, man, he hasn't looked fantastic in the postseason. Man, if you throw somebody else out there, couldn't he have done that? Couldn't he have done that? We will do the exact same thing about JB9 at the end of his career. 100%. He will mask the problems. This Bengal team will be good for a decade straight. As long as Joe Burrow is healthy, as long as Joe Burrow stays upright, this Bengals team can win every single game that they step on the field.
And I think the only counter argument I would have, and again, I'm a Bengals fan. I believe in what Reed just said. If you look at the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, I think Stephen A. Smith said yesterday that Stephon Diggs now wants out of there. I think they've now passed the window.
That's been reported true or false, by the way.
That's been reported false.
By Stephon Diggs on Twitter.
Okay. Shout out Diggs. I think if you look at the Bills, you look at Josh Allen, I think their window's passed. And I think that just is a testament to how good Joe Burrow is. I think Joe Burrow is significantly better than Josh Allen. But if you looked at them right now 2 years ago and said, yeah, the Bills are going to be a Super Bowl contender for 10-plus years because of this guy, I think you'd probably say the same thing, but now it's completely different. I think the Bills are almost dead in the water. In a couple years, I think their window will be passed, and the Buffalo Bills will be back to irrelevancy.
Yeah, we killed them on that snowy day that doesn't matter, apparently, to Trace.
We'll see what happens. I think that, hey, listen, I get it. I understand. Everybody thinks that, I think the Bengals, and rightfully so, should be very excited about the upcoming season because they're in a position that not many teams are in. They got an elite level quarterback on a rookie deal, and they have arguably one of the better defenses that this league will have this year. Again, that's not been proven yet, but at the end of the season, when you look back at it, I'd be hard pressed not to think that this Bengals defense isn't going to be above league average, if not in the top 10 maybe. And if that's the case and the defense is in the top 10, then I think when you got a quarterback like Joe Burrow and the weapons that he has, which also never gets brought up when we talk about how great Joe Burrow is, he also has unbelievable weapons that most of this league doesn't have.
Correct.
So, and again, these things they need to be said, but they also don't need to be they don't need to be a Joe Burrow problem. I'm not being a hater by telling you that Joe Burrow has weapons. I'm just suggesting that might help in the reason as to why he looks so damn good. I think Joe Burrow, again, the one thing he's never had supreme protection, which is maybe the ultimate thing that you need when you're a quarterback, right? Yes, people want to harken back and say, that he's got T. Higgins, he's got Jamar Chase, he's got Tyler Boyd, he's got I don't think they ever really give him credit for the running backs he has because and I'm not suggesting that Joe Mixon's not a great running back, but no one's going to be like, Joe Burrow's great because he throws the ball to Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield or something like that. So my main point to all of this is that the Bengals are in a prime position to make a Super Bowl run. There's no doubt about it. The scary part, if I were a Bengals fan, is that it feels like the window of opportunity is this next 1 or 2 years of supreme opportunity. Does it mean that he can't win after these next 2 years? No. But of all the years that he could win it, you could say the next 2 years are the most likely if on paper when you look at the team. Simple as that. Because once he gets paid, you're not going to have the depth you have now. It's just not. I've watched. Listen, you guys want to make fun of me, all my Packers fans that they are. I'm telling you, I've seen it in Green Bay. They did the same stuff. They wanted to act like it was going to be great forever. And you know what? They had their opportunities, they never went all in and tried to make it like, hey, let's get what we actually need to win. And again, the Jordan Love thing may look unbelievable, and I'll laugh all the way to the bank if Jordan Love ends up being another great quarterback. But they went to the NFC Championship and they spent a first-round pick on a quarterback because in their head, they got their head so damn big that the quarterback is going to mask every problem. And it just doesn't always. When your quarterback and your offense has to go score 45 points in a playoff game to win, it's not sustainable. And I'm just saying that once you pay the receivers and once you pay Joe Burrow, you're not going to have that many elite level guys on the defensive side of the ball. You're just not. Now, can you go out and draft and develop? Maybe, but again, that's like saying that the Cincinnati Reds or again, you maybe use the Rays as an example, but these small market teams should be competitive every single year with the big market. It's not feasible because when you can't spend money in important areas, it's hard to keep up. You got to be perfect from a management standpoint. Casey, were you going to say something?
Yeah, just so the whole Joe Burrow argument here, I just decided to look at the playoff career stats for Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow. And almost pound for pound, Joe Burrow is in the exact same average as Tom Brady throughout his entire career. Maybe one of the best Super Bowl quarterbacks, playoff quarterbacks ever. Right? And not only that, Joe Burrow has been sacked 29 times in the playoffs. Mahomes, out of the 5 years he's been in the league, he's made
it to the AFC Championship at least every game.
Every time he's played in, I want to say that's 14 times. He's played in 14 games. Joe Burrow in 7. Joe Burrow has been sacked 29 times. Patrick Mahomes 30 in that time frame. Literally, and they're not even that far apart in terms of average, right? Joe Burrow has a 4.0 percentage in touchdowns, 1 point percentage in interceptions, and Mahomes is at a 7, which is very high, but at a 1.5 for interception percentage. So I mean, the quarterback rate, if you want to look at that too, Joe Burrow is better than Tom Brady at the current moment. And I know it's a small sample size, but again, he's also throwing for more yards than Tom Brady is right now. If you want to average it out, he's right behind Mahomes. I mean, with what little Joe Burrow has had to work with an offensive line, and I get the argument that once he gets paid, you're going to have to start worrying about other things. But I would argue that he's already shown what he can do without an offensive line. So really you only need to do one thing, which is pay an offensive line, maybe one. And I've had this take for a long time. You only really need to pay one guy like Jamar Chase, and then you just supplement rookies.
Right.
Now, we don't know what the plan is for his contract. We really don't. I mean, everyone expects him to get a top-tier contract. I mean, I think that's like 95% guaranteed, but we have no idea the structure of it. No idea. Maybe they do find a way to sign T. Higgins. Maybe they do find a way to keep the defense. They're on pace to doing that right now. They extended Trey Hendrickson. I mean, the trajectory of this team right now is looking like they can keep a lot of their guys at the current moment. So I don't know.
I agree, but the window isn't. When everyone say the window is Joe Burrow's career, it's hard for me to believe that statement is true. But again, this is all relative semantics. At some point, you just kind of move on and you see how the chips fall. But the main point I'm making is that the pressure keeps building up. And again, this is the honeymoon stage. You don't win a Super Bowl, and again, it's hard to win a Super Bowl. But if you don't win a Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 years, it's hard for me to imagine a scenario to where the rumblings don't get very loud around here.
Oh man.
And the fact is that it gets harder and harder to win a Super Bowl once you pay your quarterback. I've watched it. The guy says, you're a Packers fan. Why don't you tell me the record with the Packers? That's my point. I've seen it. I've watched it. Once you pay the quarterback, you don't have any depth. It's gone. One defensive end gets hurt. One offensive lineman gets hurt. You're grabbing guys that were bagging up trash a week before, and you're sticking them in the lineup. That's what you got. And you can sit here and say that, the Bengals will figure it out. Will they? I'm just suggesting that if you're not going to at least admit, as a Bengals fan, I'm cool with you saying the Bengals, by God, you should be proud of the hell of them. They're one of the best teams in the NFL. But if you're not going to admit, and you're going to blindly say, our window of opportunity is basically the entire career of Joe Burrow, you're being a little blind. You have blinders on. What I'm saying is, if you don't, your best chance is the next 2 to 3 years. And I'm not saying go all in, like trade everything, but I would have a little more sense of urgency in the next 2 years than I would for the rest of Joe Burrow's career, because the chips, you have a perfect scenario right now, a perfect storm. It's perfect. And I wouldn't worry about who my 6th or 5th or 4th round pick is in 2 years because of it. That's my point. The reason that Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, didn't win more Super Bowls is because the Packers just assumed that they didn't need to go after it now. They would just, we'll just kind of keep it moving. So the depth was always an issue, and they never went out and tried to fill holes and voids in the offseason. Again, maybe you'd like to say that the Packers got unlucky and they could have won more Super Bowls, blah, 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 blah. Maybe you could argue that. But my main point is, I'm not going to listen to someone tell me that the Bengals' best chance to win a Super Bowl isn't this year and next year, because it is.
Oh, I don't think we're arguing that they shouldn't make a trade. Like, if they have an option to get a guy that is a 2nd-round pick or a 3rd-round pick, I'm all for it. But at the running back spot, that's not where I'm going. I would rather go get a defensive player that could make a difference. Maybe you're talking tight end. I don't know. They feel pretty good at the tight end spot right now, but it's not running back for me.
Yeah. The running back thing aside, you're right and wrong about
Nick
things.
Mormon really quickly says overreacting to urgency is how you don't have sustained success. Who the hell has sustained success winning Super Bowls in the NFL? Nobody. Just one team has. Out maybe 2. You could say the Chiefs have, and you could argue the Chiefs have gotten very fortunate to even win 1 Super Bowl. So I'm so tired of hearing people say sustained success, sustained success. No one has sustained success in the NFL. Nobody. Outside of one team named the Patriots. That's it. They fooled all of us. They fooled every single franchise. Would you rather be the Rams or would you rather be the Saints? I guess the Saints all went all in too. Or would you rather be the Packers?
So the two things that I'd say you're right and you're wrong about are you're right about quarterbacks typically win their Super Bowls early on in their career. If you look at the recent Hall of Fame quarterbacks, they all did it with the exception of 2 guys. Peyton Manning didn't win in his first 6-7 years, and neither did Drew Brees. Other than that, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, all these great Hall of Fame quarterbacks did win early on in their career. But I'm also going to push back on the assertion that the Green Bay Packers weren't Super Bowl contenders for the past 15 years, because they were. They just didn't win. They were contenders. They were the number 1 seed in the NFC. How many times? 4 times? They get to the conference championship 5, 6 times. It just so happened that the Packers didn't get back to the Super Bowl. They didn't get back, and it's hard. But I'm not going to sit here and listen to you telling me that the Packers weren't serious contenders for the majority of Aaron Rodgers' career, because they were. If you're the number 1 team in the NFC, you're a serious contender.
That's
if you
fair.
get to the NFC conference championship, you're a serious contender. They just didn't get over across that hump again.
No, it's more than fair, and I think that unfortunately for the Pack, it's a multitude of things that have to go right in the NFL to win the Super Bowl, and like it or not, Parker Blake said it eloquently earlier. You have to get lucky. You have to get lucky.
No doubt.
You have to get lucky. That's the weirdest thing about sports. We sit here and talk about what you need, what you don't need, blah 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 blah, and then at the end of all of it, I think it just requires some luck. You have to get lucky. Speaking of luck. You know what they say about luck? I'm going to have to find my headphones. What's 80%? 80% of luck or whatever? What's the term? 80% success is just showing up.
Yep.
And I gotta say, Tracy Jones, Mr. 29, you had your bobblehead night the other night. I think that should be true. I believe that that happened. Tracy, your overall thoughts on I don't know. I don't want to say did you ever win a championship. That would probably put you in a really, really bad spot. You could at least lie and say that you have won at least a championship if you didn't. But your overall thoughts on the argument of whether or not the Bengals should I guess, make maybe moves they wouldn't traditionally make in the next year or two because they have an unbelievable opportunity right in front of them. And would you go all in, I guess is the term that people use?
I would absolutely go all in. I love their skilled players. Their offensive line, I think, is going to be better this year. I think the Bengals are right there. Aren't they favored to go to the Super Bowl this year? I think. They're in Kansas City, I think. Right
they are. Joe Burrow and some sports books of the world and on Betfred is right there at the top of the list to win the league MVP. So if you have a chance for your quarterback to win league MVP, that means they probably think that your team is going to be near the top. But switching gears here really quickly here, Tracy. Did you have your bobblehead night?
Yeah, let's get back to talking about something really important, and that was my bobblehead night at y'all's game, Florence Y'all's.
Mm-hmm.
Let me try to paint the picture here for you guys. Picture Field of Dreams meets Saturday Night Fever. That's the electricity that was in that ballpark. It was so much better than going to a Reds game. You know how you've got a bunch of lunchbox people that go to the Reds games? These people were all that went to the Y'all's game for my bobblehead were all high end. They were more sophisticated. And actually, if you check the FQI for that game, it was a Wednesday game too. Still, it was rocking and rolling. If you check the FQI for that game, it was higher than the Reds got Friday night against Toronto. That's hard to believe, I know, you guys, but it was really something. A lot of energy. Is Elliot there by any chance?
Of course, Elliot is here. Elliot, take it away.
I'm here, Mr. Jones.
Elliot, could I ask you a question? Are you married or do you have a girlfriend?
No to both questions, Mr. Jones.
Okay, Elliot, please do me a favor.
Yeah.
Go to you all's game and check out the wool at those games. I've never seen so many good-looking girls. You would have thought you're at a Dodger game or an Angel game. There were so many good-looking girls. Elliot, please, you'll find someone there. I guarantee it.
I'll try. I'll try to make it out this week or next week, Mr. Jones.
Yeah. And by the way, my bobblehead was a huge success. You guys have seen my bobblehead, right?
No, I mean, do you have some?
Yeah, I think I have one left. This when most people get their bobblehead, it's made in China. This was actually made in Switzerland. There's a watchmaker that doubles as a bobblehead maker. And this is what he came up with. I think it is just the best bobblehead you've ever seen, right? I mean, you could drop this and it won't break. I mean, it's just really something.
Do you want to try that on air? Do you want to try that on air? Do you want to test that theory or no?
No. I show a lot of respect for this little guy. I really like him. But we really had a good time. Marty was there. Marty and Amanda. And we had a good time. It's too bad. You guys would have liked it.
So how many of those do you have sitting around? Do you got some extra ones? What does it take to get your bobblehead right up here with the other pristine bobbleheads that are on the producer's desk?
I think I've got one or two left. You could actually, if you want one, Trace, you could go to eBay. They're selling them for $45.
Are they?
Those guys, Google that. It's on eBay, $45 a piece, which I think is a bargain. I'm a little upset. I think they should go for more.
So what kind of seats did Marty have at the Y'all's game? Did you get any special privileges? Or was Marty out? You were in a suite, okay.
We were in a suite, and it really is a nice ballpark. I got to tell you, I had a good time. Crowd stayed till the end. Game was 11-10. I will say this, and all kidding aside, the players, and I've watched a lot of minor league baseball because my son Hunter was in it for 10 years. So I've seen rookie, A-ball, AA, AAA. The players aren't real good. There's some plays which is fine. But, I just saw some plays that should have been made. But they had a pitcher that was throwing 96 miles an hour, which is pretty good. There was actually a Yankee scout in attendance watching the kid. So there's just kind of a little bit of drop-off between, A-ball, AA, AAA, and then independent baseball. But the Y'alls, great time, and I would highly recommend going to a ball game there.
Well, Brett Kennedy, who's thrown a couple really good starts here now for the Cincinnati Reds, was playing some indie ball. So indie ball can have its opportunities for guys to get a second opportunity. It is kind of wild, though, Tracy, the discrepancy in talent sometimes in indie ball games. You have some guys that are actually pretty damn good that might end up playing perhaps some more professional baseball in the minor league level and or perhaps even possibly the major league level if you get a great story. And then you have some guys that I think that are just on the tail end of either a college career or perhaps somebody hasn't told them yet that they probably should just decide to move on. But that's why they have Tracy Jones night, so they can have you come out and share that information with them.
I think it's really tough, and I think you're wasting time in another job than to go out there and play independent baseball as a position ball player. Now, if you're a pitcher, you might get a shot of signing. But a position ball player, how many catchers are they signing? How many shortstops? Really? That's not going to happen. But those guys, and I had a chance to talk to a few players before the game, really nice kids, just love the game of baseball. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, they don't want to hang it up. They're just going to keep playing, and they're having a good time. Not making much money, but still having a good time.
Well, no doubt about it. I think that there's two ways to look at that. I kind of was on the pessimistic side at the end of your career when you're looking at what you should do in regards to playing. Sometimes though, just keep on playing until someone tells you're not allowed to play anymore. Might be the best strategy to do. I don't know. I mean, I hear you though. Perhaps they might be better off just to go and start their career and doing something else, and they might be able to get ahead of the game. But hell, if you want to keep playing baseball and you can get away with it, more power to you.
And listen, those guys really, there's not many Tracy Joneses out there. I mean, Tracy Jones went from baseball to being a financial advisor to having the number one show in the region in the afternoon on one of the biggest radio stations. I get to be on Chatterbox with you guys. I have multiple streams of income. So I don't expect those guys to be like a Tracy Jones. So, but still, you get 30 years old and you're playing independent ball, you need to turn the page. That's my piece of advice for those guys.
Tracy, when you were in the big leagues, I was fortunate enough, I think I might have told this story before, maybe not. I was fortunate enough to play 3 summers, I believe, for Mark Lewis. And for those that don't know who Mark Lewis is, Mark Lewis was drafted in '89. Second overall, ended up playing for Cleveland, and he was very similar to you, Tracy, to be honest with you. He got the fortune of playing for, 4 or 5. Somebody could dig that up. How many teams did he play for? 5 major league teams, maybe. I don't know if he was as good as you. I don't know if he got to 5, but I know he got up there. But the one thing that he kind of kept telling me was just the clubhouse and how that's, you just can't replicate that. You'll never again in your entire life be able to find a place that was similar or like the clubhouse. Are you able to share any clubhouse stories that immediately pop to mind that obviously are appropriate? You don't throw anyone under the bus, perhaps. I'm not asking you to do that. But he would tell me clubhouse story after clubhouse story after clubhouse story when I would be on these road trips with him and we'd be driving around to play summer baseball that were, quite honestly, hilarious. Don't know if you'd ever find it in corporate America. I know you wouldn't. But do you have any particular clubhouse memories that immediately pop to mind?
Well, Trace, I'm going to say something, and you might want to write this down. This is very profound.
We'll write this down.
What happened? You probably have never heard this before, but what happens in the locker room stays in the locker room. Have you guys ever heard that before? Or is this the first time?
First time I've ever heard that.
You know, I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you what wasn't. It's not funny, but when you have a clubhouse meeting and your team is stinking it up, and you got to shake things up. I actually saw Danny Jackson and Eddie Milner get into it as Pete was talking. They got into a little bit, and everything was fine after that. But I saw Chet Lemon and Jack Morris get into it over a clubhouse meeting. I remember Sparky telling our hitting coach, and a guy who I think could be in the Hall of Fame, or probably should be in the Hall of Fame, Veda Pinson. Can you imagine Sparky? Because Veda was talking, and Sparky didn't like that and told Veda to shut up. And just these team meetings, a lot of things can go down. It's not funny stuff, but it just kind of catches you off guard because when you're in the locker room, we all get along. There's not backstabbers. Do you know what I mean? Nobody's backstabbing because we're all worried about ourselves. We're all self-centered when you're a baseball. Not me, but a lot of those other guys. But they think the world revolves around them, and a lot of those players, it does. I was in radio for a long time. There was a guy that backstabbed me all the time. I never had that in baseball. Never was backstabbed at all. This guy just keeps throwing, stab me in the back every time I turned around. So, yeah, just kind of a different, I miss being in the locker room. I really do, because the guys are really good guys. Well, I'd say 99% of the guys that are on baseball teams, super cool.
Couple pointed questions I have about the Reds, I guess in general terms of an overarching, when you're in the clubhouse, you're in our locker room, how does it affect the team? Jake Fraley is a guy that's obviously had a lot of success this year for the Cincinnati Reds, has been a large part of their of the reason they are where they are, has a fractured toe, is in a position where the doctors have told him that he can go out and try to play on it, and if he breaks it, then it's the same basically timetable to return as he would if he just had a fracture. And it's going to require surgery regardless, so it's up to you. Jake Fraley said this team's special. He wants to play. Do you think, and this is where I want your opinion on it, because mine obviously has, I have a specific one. I want to see if they align. What's your opinion on guys that decide that I'm going to play through this injury? Do you think it can wear on a team if the player comes back and doesn't perform after a certain bit of time? Do players start to think to themselves, in your mind, hey, this guy's being selfish and everyone else is acting like he's being unselfish?
That's a great, great question. My advice to Fraley would be to sit it out. Trace, it is so tough to play in the big leagues. Big leaguers nowadays are so much better than years past. I mean, guys throwing 100 miles an hour, throwing, great sliders, change-ups. I think you're hurting the team if you're not 100%. I think it's tough to play in the big leagues when you are 100%. To try to play at 80% or 90%, I think it's too tough and you're going to hurt the team. I played with a guy, and you guys know, I'm not going to name the name, but he was a player. If he had a hangnail, if he just didn't feel good, he'd sit the game out. And, I thought that was bad, but I think he's pretty smart than doing what I did, go out there and play on a bum knee and embarrass myself. That was stupid. Should have just sat it out, got surgery, but I was trying to do a Fraley thing because nobody cares about your injury. Nobody cares. The only one that cares is your wife, or your mom and dad. You're trying to be a gamer and you're hurting the team. So my advice to Fraley, and I don't think you could fix a broken toe. Am I right on that? I mean, there's no surgery. You don't set it. You don't wear a cast. It just takes time. So I would set it out. Get healthy. Play 100%, not 90.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm at a little bit with Jake Fraley. I hope that he comes back, he plays well, but my fear is that, when you're not healthy, it's really hard to play well. I mean, it just is. I mean, I know that you could argue that he could DH, and I think that's probably where he ultimately will get slotted into doing. But even when you're a DH, you got to run. I don't know how running goes with a broken toe, but we'll see. We'll see ultimately where it ends up. Jonathan India, another guy that's obviously been out with injury, very frustrated with the way that whole thing's been handled. Do you think that has any impact on front office? Do you think that perhaps when you go into the media, and again, I'm not suggesting that Jonathan India should or should not have done this. What I am doing is trying to paint a picture around the reality of the situation. Jonathan India got his advice from the team doctors. Got advice that perhaps another second opinion doctor in California asked, why in the world did you handle this way from the beginning? And he obviously then said, well, that's what I was told to do. Now he's frustrated with the team doctors. He's pretty much publicly said that. Do you think that has any kind of negative impact, or is that just kind of a null void, not that big of a deal, you move on, who cares? Do you think it has a negative impact that he's been openly frustrated against the team doctors?
Yeah, I don't know is Kremchek still the team doctor, because I'm good friends with Tim.
Tim kind of has passed. It's still within the Beacon Orthopedics. It's Rosano. Not that we need to name the names, but Rosano, I believe, is now kind of one of the lead men. But that is essentially the heir apparent, or kind of the study. I don't want to. I'm probably using terms that maybe these doctors wouldn't agree with, but it's kind of the same lineage of Kremchek. He kind of passed it along here to Rosano and the gang.
Yeah, I don't want to badmouth any doctor, but I think it's always important as an athlete or just a regular person, a ham and egger, to go get a second opinion on something. Because I believe in surrounding yourself with really intelligent people. My friend recently was really sick, and he went to a number of doctors to get what they thought he should do, and ended up with some great doctors to get some advice. It's always easy to second guess as well, but anytime you have an injury, even if it's your kid or yourself, you should get a second opinion. I wish I would have got a second opinion when I hurt my knee originally.
All right, final thoughts here before we get off. Your overall just takeaway with the Cincinnati Reds. Do you think that they're doomed? Do you see that the magic has worn off? Your overall gut reaction when it comes to what it is, a young team that has either peaked, or perhaps they're just going through a little lowly slump and they'll be right back on track with what we've seen earlier this year. Your gut reaction.
Here's my concern, and I think it is a concern. You guys probably disagree with me, but the Hunter Green getting roped against the Blue Jays. Listen, I play with a guy by the name of Randy Johnson. Okay, Randy Johnson had great stuff. He never would give up 5 home runs. Right? I mean, if you have such great stuff and you're throwing 100 miles an hour, how do you give up 5 home runs with that stuff? And someone will say, well, Trace, maybe he throws too many fastballs. Luis Castillo, the other night, threw 43 straight fastballs. Right? That's what he did. So you can I'm not saying you can get by in the big leagues with just one pitch, but to give up 5 home runs, and this isn't the only time he's done that, right? He's given up 5-6 home runs before in a ball game. Is that right or wrong?
I believe in one time, I don't have this off the top of my head, but I believe he's given up 4 maybe in a game previous. He's been hit hard, Tracy, to your point.
Yeah, I mean, right? I mean, Nolan Ryan. When we faced Nolan Ryan, we weren't going to hit 4 or 5 home runs. Now, Nolan Ryan might lose. He might walk a few guys. But you're not hitting a ton off these guys. Roger Clemens, Brett Saberhagen. Those guys aren't giving up gopher balls, and I don't know why Hunter Green is giving up those home runs. He must his ball must be extremely straight, and number 2, he's probably throwing a light ball. And it's just 5 home runs is a lot, you have to admit.
Nick Kirby, who is also a part of Chatterbox Reds, is about as quick as they come when it comes to statistics, said Randy Johnson has given up 4 home runs 3 different times in his career. But to be fair, I guess to your point, and in general, Nolan Ryan also gave up 4 home runs in 1989. The thing is this. I asked the question the other day, and I wanted to know what your opinion is on it. Hunter Green is in a situation where I think that everybody just has touted him as automatically being the ace of the staff. He has to, he's looked upon as supposed to be the next Randy Johnson. I say Randy Johnson and a little bit being facetious here, but he's looked upon as being a guy that's like a high-end major league starter. For this Reds franchise, do you think he needs to be that? Because I harken back to just say, listen, it's okay if Hunter Green doesn't ultimately end up being the guy that we maybe all hoped he is. But if he's a serviceable 2 or a serviceable 3 and is still relatively pretty good, above league average, obviously, based off the contract they just signed, I don't say that's all you can ask for, but that would still be a win, Tracy.
I think if he's a number 2, I think that's fine. But, you gave him a lot of money. I still have to question, what was the hurry to sign Hunter Green to a long-term deal? What was the rush? What was the rush to sign David Bell in the middle of the season? Why not wait till the end of the season and sign these guys? I mean, Hunter Green was controllable. I just don't know why these general managers make the moves. And that just didn't make sense to me, the long-term deal.
Well, Tracy, it's all risk management, right? So, I mean, you're obviously a person that understands risk management probably more than most. I think that's what it was for the Cincinnati Reds. They thought they had an opportunity of a guy that could have, and they I don't want to say they bet wrong yet because he still has plenty of time left to try to prove them right and or wrong. But the point is that I'm going to make is that clearly they didn't know that he was going to have the injury problems this year. If he would have gone out and thrown the ball really, really, really well, now you're in a position where you probably aren't going to be able to lock him up for the amount of money that they basically paid him. And the money that he really got paid, Tracy, mostly, in my opinion at least, is just arbitration money. They kind of avoided arbitration by doing that, and they're not paying him a whole significant amount more. All in all, though, here's where I'm at with it. I'm not suggesting you have to think this way, Tracy. All it is just the owner's money, right? It's not going to cost the Reds. If you can make the argument that if they can't go out and get somebody else because they spent too much money on him, well, then that's where you get into this whole ownership issue or dilemma, right? What's your opinion on not the Reds ownership? I don't want to go down that path. But what's your opinion on ownership in general? The Baltimore Orioles owner came out the other day and basically said that, hey, in order for us to pay all these young guys, we're going to have to raise ticket prices significantly. You have some people that are in the camp that are like, and I'm not saying I'm in this camp because I'm not, that if you want to own an MLB franchise, that's just part of the deal. You better pony up. You got to pay for it. And then I'm kind of in the side of the deal where the economics, even though you're wealthy and rich and a multi-millionaire, maybe even perhaps a billionaire, the economics still should have to make sense for you to spend money on certain players. It shouldn't just be this hobby that maybe perhaps people are starting to believe, largely because of Steve Cohen and the Mets owner, as an example.
Yeah, well, look at how did that work as far as Cohen is concerned. I mean, that payroll was, $250 million, and they're still under 500. Look at the Padres. Padres lead in hitting. Some of the hitters are some of the best hitters in the game. Their pitching's really good, but yet they're 5 games under 500. I mean, how is that? So I kind of like the model. I don't think you have to spend a lot of money. I would let those kids, when they reached arbitration, I'd probably get rid of them and start over. I'd just keep feeding the system. I would do like Tampa Bay does. I know that's not a popular opinion, but when you're a small market, that's what you have to do, Trace. I mean, you just can't keep doing these long-term deals. I'm really against long-term deals. And for you guys that like long-term deals, give me a couple long-term deals that have done well, right?
It's a very fair point, Tracy. In fact, I would argue that perhaps that's the way that the league's going to go for most small market teams here moving forward, because the Tampa Bay Rays of the world have ruined it, if you will, for the long-term deal. And you know what's crazy? Perhaps the most greatest point to what you just said is Joey Votto. Joey Votto's a guy that had about as good of a career as you could possibly have based off of when you paid him and what you got out of him, right? I know this year he's struggling, but he's 39 years old, going on 40 years old. The truth is that he's already played up to the potential, and he's already played for what he's been paid in his contract, right? That was more of a deal to where on the back end you knew you were probably going to get less production out of it. But to be fair, Joey Votto again, you can make the case, and it's not Joey Votto's fault one iota at all. Doesn't matter. What I'm going to say has nothing against Joey Votto. But if Joey Votto's contract stopped the Cincinnati Reds from being able to go and make other pieces and plays for other maybe important positions than first base, that was a bad deal for the Cincinnati Reds. And I think that the Reds ownership and the front office in general came to grips with that, understood that, and decided, you know what? We're probably not going to do any more mega deals like that ever again.
Okay, you ready for this? Now you listening, right? Everybody listening?
I think so.
This is not going to be popular, but I've been thinking about this for a while. I'm a big Joey Votto fan. I would re-sign Joey Votto for 2 years, and I'd bring him back next year. I'd bring him back for $3 or $4 million. Think about this guy. Joey Votto was drafted in 2002 out of high school. Made it to the big leagues 5 years later. Look at him. He's never been in trouble. He's the greatest Reds hitter of all time. I don't care what you say. All-around hitter, whether we're talking about doubles, on-base percentage, combine it, best hitter ever. I'd like to see him finish his career with the Reds. And I think people watching this, a lot of people would agree. I don't want it to be a Ken Griffey Jr. thing where you're playing at Seattle, and then you go to Chicago, then you go to Cincinnati. I don't like that. Or Michael Jordan. Remember when he went to the Wizards? Remember that? Or even Aaron Rodgers. You guys were talking about Green Bay. You know, I think of Aaron Rodgers. I want him to finish his career in Green Bay. I don't like it when those superstars go somewhere else. I would really like to see Joey Votto finish his career. And I think he could do a lot of good for the young players. What do you have, 7 rookies on that team? Don't you need a veteran presence? You talk about clubhouse and chemistry all the time, right? Joey Votto's great for that. He's hit with power. I just think I would go out and sign Joey Votto. But I'd do it right now. I wouldn't wait till the end of the year. I would sign Joey Votto to a 2-year deal.
I can't agree with you on that. I would not do that under any circumstances. The only reason that I say that is because, again, I don't know what I'm getting out of Joey Votto from even the rest of this year, even going into next year. And if you're trying to convince me that he'd be willing to come back for league minimum and perhaps just basically vaguely be kind of a part of the clubhouse and the team but doesn't really have a huge role, maybe you could convince me of that. My only kind of counter to all of that is that everyone's a competitor, Tracy. I know Joey Votto's loved by the fans. I know he's been a team player his whole entire career. He's been a good kind of clubhouse guy his entire career. Nothing he has done that makes me believe that he wouldn't be that. But I also don't think Joey Votto's ever been in a position where he's had to sit on the bench, and he's been a bench guy for a long period of time. I'm not suggesting that would turn him completely sour. I just don't know if you get the same Joey Votto you get that you've had your entire career here in Cincinnati when he has to genuinely sit behind guys for long periods of time. And from a roster management standpoint, it's just not there anymore. I hate to say that. I don't want to be that guy. But usually good organizations know when the time is up. The time is up, Tracy. And I just say this. I've been trying to. I haven't been doing a good enough job of this. I need to enjoy the last, whatever it is, 2 months of Joey Votto's career here. I do. I have not been doing that. I've been getting frustrated, quite frankly, that the production's just not been there. It's been abysmal, if we're being completely honest. Since the All-Star break, Joey Votto has not been good. However, it's not really – I don't say it's not his fault, but – and I feel like I'm being a little bit of a pushover here, Tracy. Maybe a little participation trophy, a little rubbing off on me here. But in general terms, I give Joey Votto a pass because I don't think it's his fault that, one, we're asking as much out of a 39-year-old first baseman as we are, and injuries have forced him to be in the lineup against guys he should never be facing. He should not be facing any left-handers. He's having to go 3 or 4 at-bats in a game right now, Tracy, when he should never be facing those guys, and it just makes him look, I don't say worse, but it makes him look bad. So I feel a little bit bad for Joey, but as far as an idea of bringing him back, I would actually sit down with Joey and have an honest conversation with him about this. Would he be willing to come back and be, I know this sounds weird and simple. Does he want to have some kind of, they always make up names down there at Great American Ballpark and throughout Major League Baseball for jobs. Make up an advisor. Make up a job for Joey Votto. Tell him you're going to give him a certain amount of money for a certain amount of time. See if he'll take it. If he wants to take it, great. If he doesn't, that's fine. He has every right to leave as well. But if I was the Reds, I'd consider doing that. I'm not signing him to be a baseball player again, though.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Just one more thing before I go. I got to tell you, I saw it. Marty was there, right, for the Tracy Jones bobblehead.
That's right.
We were in the suite. Now, toward the end, you won't believe this, Trace. I caught Marty in the corner playing with my bobblehead, if you can believe that. He was in the corner. It was just no one. He's sitting there talking to it and playing with it, bopping his head like this. It was so cute. You should have seen it.
Was he talking to it?
Oh, he's talking to it. You remember when you used to have those army men used to play with them like that? Marty was doing that. I don't know. You might want to ask him if you have him on the show.
Yeah, I might have to ask him. We might have to get Marty back on. I have to reach out to Marty. Marty, obviously, Tom's been out with the vocal cord situation. I know that the last time you were on, I don't know if it was the last time or maybe the previous time before that, you were. It was Paul. Was it Paul's last show? It was one of the final shows Paul was doing, and you obviously didn't know about Tom's situation, and I think that I seen the wheels turning there for a minute. You were trying to figure out what was going on, and you kind of laid back. But we hope Tom is back relatively soon. But he's dealing with the vocal cord situation that plagued him a little bit earlier in his career. So hopefully Tom will be back better than ever soon.
I think so, too. I hope so.
All right, Tracy. Well, we appreciate you coming on here. I know that I do want to apologize, though. I'm usually a pretty good communicator. At least I pride myself on that. I've not been the last few days. I finally remembered that I needed to text. Reed's over here saying that I big league the big leader. That's not what I was trying to do. But ultimately, if that's the way that it was, if that's what happened, my apologies. I did get back to you, though. I did get back to you.
Yeah. Reed has it right. Reed has it right. Now that you're sitting in the big chair, Trace, now you think you're a big shot. And now you said you don't get back to me? No, here's the thing. I don't get back to you. That's how this works. I'm a big leaguer. I'm a Major League Baseball player. And Elliot, go to the U-Alls game. You'll pull some wool.
Fair enough. All right, Tracy. Next time you're on, we'll have to discuss your golf game. Do you play any golf?
No, working on it.
No. All right, you're working on it. All right, good to hear. We'll have to just have that discussion maybe next time you're on. All right, Tracy, thank you. None other than Mr. 29, Tracy Jones, and or known as Mr. Jones from Elliot Rearing. Elliot, I love that you do that. That's a good bit you got there.
Thank you. I try my best with the bits.
But yeah, I understand where kind of the logic lies with some of the sports outlets. I do know that people in the chat are all over me about who I like, this, that, and the other. I feel like I should probably tell you once and for all the reason that I like some of these teams is because of family connections, and that's largely it. That's the only reason as to why I like the Green Bay Packers. Otherwise, I'd probably be a Bengals fan, and I'd probably be a little more knowledgeable about the Cincinnati Bengals. But sometimes, if we're going to be honest about it, it's nice to hear from one outsider, somebody that's not ingrained into the state-run media that exists within the Cincinnati Bengals. You guys want to have your own narratives, your own belief system, that's fine. I'm telling you, it's hard to win in the NFL. It's hard to win a Super Bowl. To think that you're going to be in the same spot you are now as you are in maybe 6 years from now just because Joe Burrow is a quarterback, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe you'll clip this up in 6 years and Joe Burrow will be holding a Lombardi over his head.
Trace, I don't know if you remember, but after Joe Burrow got drafted, and we put a lot of stock. I mean, we put him on a pedestal before he played one snap for the Cincinnati Bengals. You just kept coming in the office and you just kept going. Tell you what, Joe Burrow better work out. This city's putting a lot of stock in him. And we still maybe have put too much in him, but he's dependent on our happiness here in town.
I think Jordan Love's going to be great.
I think he is too.
I think he's going to be great.
This isn't a Packers show. That's the one thing I understand. I mean, people are like, "Oh, how in the world do we got hosts that are Cubs fans and Packers fans running a Cincinnati sports talk show?" Well, okay, I'm a Reds fan, and Reed's a Bengals fan, so it kind of works out in that way.
Together we're a Cincinnati fan.
Together we're a Cincinnati fan. If you match up me and Reed perfectly, we are the ultimate Cincinnati fan. The other side of the coin, though, is that we're also not going to be fake. I'm not going to sit here and act like I like some team just because I run an organization in Cincinnati. And that being said, I do genuinely hope best for this city, and I hope best for the Bengals. Sometimes it gets a little nauseating having to hear about certain things over and over and over again, a la Lou Armadillo and the defense that he has. But outside of that, I hope the Bengals have all the success in the world. In regards to the Packers, we'll see where it goes. I've been on the mountaintop as a Packers fan. It's been great. It's been fun watching them. And you know what? If I have to have some lowly years because of it, so be it. We'll see where it ultimately goes. But don't look back now. Jordan Love's looking pretty good. It's looking pretty good. Have a pretty good track record in Green Bay of having good quarterbacks. I don't know. Brett Favre left. Everybody said, "Oh no, here goes the Packers' downfall." Aaron Rodgers
he stole all the money from Mississippi.
And then he just decided they needed a new volleyball arena in Mississippi, and he just threw it all away. We'll see what Aaron Rodgers does next. Maybe he'll end up being a criminal, and maybe in 20 years, Jordan Love will be in the Hall of Fame and be a criminal too.
What makes you think that Jordan Love looks good?
Well, I watched him throw passes.
It's certainly not his play on the field, though.
It's not preseason, is it?
I knew you were going to go to there with the preseason
I'm not saying it's preseason, is it? It doesn't matter.
And that's why I'm not making a huge deal about it.
Meaningless.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
And you're right. I got to be honest. You're right. It doesn't matter. All that matters is what happens week 1. Tomorrow, if we're in a situation where I do want to ask everybody in the chat and you guys, we'll go through the league. I want to figure out who you think in each division is the overperformer and the underperformer of each league. We'll do that tomorrow. And until tomorrow, you take care of yourselves. And I think just maybe, the golf match between Elliot and Trace will be out tomorrow. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. But besides that, as always, thank you for watching the show. We love you. Even if you disagree with me, I don't care. Thank you for watching the show. I still love you. Take care, everybody.